the front line as Foreign Secretary?
I am going to return. I am going to return.
To
the people from whence I came.
Hello, I'm Peter Mandelson, and I'm proud to serve as His Majesty's British Ambassador to the United States of America.
I feel a tremendous sense, a profound sense of sympathy for those people, those women who suffered as a result of his behaviour and his illegal criminal activities. And secondly, I regret very, very deeply indeed carrying on that association with him for far longer than I should have done.
The Ambassador has repeatedly expressed his deep regret for his association with him. He's right to do so. I have confidence in him, and he's playing an important role in the UK-US relationship.
Mandy's out 4 decades and 3 scandals, or 3 that we know about. Guess what? Number 10 knew all about it. They knew that he lived in Jeffrey Epstein's flat.
Mandelson resigned from the Labour Party late last night over the allegation of a $75,000 set of payments to him from Epstein while he was business secretary, $10,000 to his now husband, a photo of him in his pants. This isn't just bad form. There are strong arguments here for him to be facing investigation over misconduct in public office.
I knew of his association with Epstein, but had I known then what I know now, I'd have never appointed him.
Breaking news that Lord Mandelson, Peter Mandelson, has now been arrested. So Mandy and Andy have now both had their collars felt. This is the establishment, the British establishment on trial. Came to us around about 5 o'clock when we learned that we saw footage of Peter Mandelson being led out of his London home in very exclusive Regent's Park by 3 coppers.
Now we have all these allegations, we have all the documentation related to those allegations, which Downing Street is being forced to put out. The first tranche of it will be early next month.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Very good morning to you. Sometimes I wish there was a camera backstage at the exact moment we were going live. Damien shot in front of me like you wouldn't believe to deliver the papers to our wonderful, wonderful breakfast newspaper review this morning. A very good morning to you. What is it? Thursday, the 2nd of April. You would talk, of course, the home of common sense and the home of the alarm clock Brit. That is certainly a phrase that is catching on, created by our very own Christian. Politicians are now using it. The alarm clock Brit. You know who you are. You've been up all night, you're heading home, or you're just up and about. You're getting ready to work. You go to work, you do your shift, you pay your bills, and still you feel in this damn country right now you're at the back of the queue. Everything's expensive, everything's becoming harder. You look at what's going on in Clapham and you think, has every part of what we are disappeared? Well, I'll tell you what about this station. This station will not allow that to happen. This is the place where your views on the news are very welcome, always welcome. 0344 499 1000, the only number you need. Damien is here, Speedy. Christian as well, your voice notes. Who's going to be first today? 0344 499 1000 and your text to 87222. Now, I'm going to do this calmly today. What are you waking up to? Well, you're waking up to the news that Donald Trump, this tells you something about America, by the way, last night addressed the nation. He sort of said he was going to pull out of Iran in 3 weeks. Then he said he was going to bomb them into the Stone Age. There are many reports that he says that he's going to leave NATO and we can sort out the Straits of Hormuz ourselves. Something about America. Within about an hour of him saying, I'm going to finish this in 3 weeks, his approval rating went up 5%. I think he just says anything now, but I tell you, I think the NATO thing's quite interesting. I said when he was elected, when he said, hold on a second, we're paying billions to support Europe and they're paying less. I do think, because of what he perceives to be a lack of support over Iran, that he will undoubtedly, in some way, seek some revenge. Morning, Donny.
I can say tonight that we are on track to complete all of America's military objectives shortly, very shortly. We're going to hit them extremely hard over the next 2 to 3 weeks. We're going to bring them back to the Stone Ages where they belong. In the meantime, discussions are ongoing. Regime change was not our goal.
Quite low-key for Donald Trump, and probably the flu. Talking low-key, back home, the Prime Minister, that hugely impressive individual, Keir Starmer, says that he seeks much closer ties with the European Union. I have long been convinced that he wants to reverse Brexit and will blame anything and anybody on what's going on in the country, but not himself. Your views on that? There are many sceptics, including myself. Whether you agree with Brexit or not, that's what the British public voted for, and we have a government who are doing all in their power to reverse that. 0344 499 1000. Hurrah! I never thought I'd say it on this show. Rachel Thieves, you know, Richard III, Rachel from Accounts. Finally, a bit of backbone. She apparently has caused a huge rift with Ed Miliband by saying that drilling in the North Sea is a must financially. Finally, somebody in the Labour government speaking some sense, because it does make sense, as we say most days, because we've got gold, liquid gold, but Ed Miliband doesn't want to use it. Rachel Reeves, fighting for her political life. It's a very interesting inspiration. Now, this will be the thing that gets you. I'm going to say it very carefully. You might have seen those appalling images of Clapham youths just running amok in masks the last couple of nights. 2 or 3 policemen going, "Oh, please don't do that." Signs of, you know, what is to come, I fear. I don't know whether it's a breakdown of the family unit, a lack of control. I was talking to a taxi driver yesterday. We were scared of the police. We were scared that they'd take you home to your mam and you'd be in trouble. Today's youth don't seem to feel like that. Despite the fact that, look, if you watch it on YouTube, you can see it. Complete carnage. 400 youths looting shops, stealing cars. This was in Clapham. Sadiq Khan, ladies and gentlemen, says, and I quote, "London is a safe city and people are spreading false propaganda because it serves their interests." I spend a lot of time taking aim at Starmer, but this man, he's a horrible mayor. This man I don't know whether he doesn't understand, whether he just turns a blind eye. It is patently obvious what's going on as that teenage mob stormed Clapham High Street. Your mayor, our mayor, well, not my mayor, he says, "It's all false propaganda," Sadiq Khan. What an absolute lemon. 0344 499 1000. Text to 87222. Now, sometimes in radio and television, you meet somebody and they start off and they're very keen to do every job, and then they sort of transform. Regally, I would say. We say a very good morning. She's turned into a bit of a princess, actually. Samara Gill, looking like a proper newsreader. You were
always a princess. I was just hiding under the cloak of other sort of disguises.
Do you know what you do, though? Oh, it's always a princess, to be honest, mate. Welcome to the show. How are you, darling?
Good. How are you, JK? It's
I'm
great
all right.
to be here.
Let's start with Sadiq Khan, because I can't. I watched Susan Hall ask him a question. He ignores it. He's so against what I perceive to be any ounce of common sense. How in the name of God can London be seen as a safe city with the crime rates, with the problems with knife crime, and then you see that teenage mob in Clapham High Street and he says it's false propaganda?
I mean, it's Sadiq Stalin, isn't it? It really is. He's gaslighting the public into thinking that they're insane because they don't feel safe on the streets of London. But the reality is, I mean, you've got knife crime offences up. You know, 16,300. It's a 10-year high.
I just wish people would hold on to that. A 10-year high of knife crime in London under Sadiq Khan. Fact, not propaganda.
No, not propaganda like he's spewing. You've obviously, you know, he contorts some of the numbers. He doesn't like to go into women's safety when he publishes things on his Twitter page, which doesn't have any right of reply on, because you can't comment on it. You can't tell him that he's wrong. I mean, this man is seriously presiding over a horrific rule. I think he's been sort of chief of destroying London, and you know, we can see that with what Starmer's doing, trying to basically make sure that he's okay in the next section of his career by giving him that peerage, by making him Lord Sadiq, which has enraged most of the public because he's been failing upwards like most of the Labour cabinet.
You know why I think he's doing that, right?
Why?
To buy off what the Greens are doing. But the Greens have, if you look at Gorton and Denton, secured the Muslim vote, and I absolutely totally believe that this is political by Starmer, but the man himself, forget Starmer for a minute, Sadiq Khan pontificates, and he's always, the platitudes out of his mouth, it's all about, oh, you know, I care about this and I care about that. The fact of the matter is that many hundreds, thousands of Londoners would say the city is unsafe, the man is not in tune with what's going on. False propaganda. I would go respectfully as far as saying that Sadiq Khan will use anything in his power, whether it's he just doesn't strike. I don't even know how he's been elected, and they're saying he will win again, for goodness sake. It's extraordinary. Do people in London not come out and vote? Because I think last time of the 12 million that could, only 1 million voted. Come out and vote is what I would say.
I want to level with you here. I think actually the rise of the Greens might be a good thing for a potential Conservative mayor from some sort of Conservative side of the spectrum to come in, because it will split the vote on the left side. So you'll get people that are so disenfranchised with Khan for all the wrong reasons, who will then vote for the Greens, split that Labour vote that we've been wanting to split for a long time.
What about a Green Labour coalition, though?
Oh, that would be doomsday.
I'm moving to New Zealand, which is 30 years behind the rest of the world, to be fair.
Do you think they'll collide, though? Do you think that's even a possibility? Because they've got so many ideological differences.
I think you're very right. I was talking to somebody the other day from another party, and they were saying that it's all well and good for everybody to say, in the next election, you know, in 3 or 4 years' time, unless the Tories and Reform, one or the other, sit down together, the left, they're all gonna galvanise together, the Liberal Democrats and the Greens and the Labour. And he said to me quite simply, can you imagine those three writing, seriously, a manifesto? It wouldn't work.
Well, you're already seeing fractions within the Green Party. You obviously had Zach Polanski and Hannah Spencer. Well, Dave Holden, or Paul Holden, or however you want to call him dancing on the stage with the BDSM crew and the LGBTQ, which is no issue, but unfortunately it really upset Mothin Ali, his deputy behind the scenes, who obviously has a wife that wears a niqab. So you're already seeing fractions within that party. You can see with the Your Party, the Jeremy Corbyn, Zara Sultana, lunatic crew.
What's happened to that?
Well, they hate each other. They couldn't get along. So I don't know how a Labour, Lib Dem, Green coalition could ever work. So I think in a way you can consider yourself happy that probably won't come to fruition.
It's very interesting. But Sadiq Khan, love your thoughts. 0344 499 1000. Text to 87222. How is this man allowed to be London mayor? How is he allowed to speak? Just for YouTube people watching, I mean, there it is, hundreds of youths running amok, no police, and the London mayor says people are spreading false propaganda. No, Sadiq Khan, you're spreading false propaganda. Your entire approach is false. The truth is, it's no good. Clapham mob, says Brian. Welcome to Khanland, the jewel in the crown within the third world state of Starmer in 2026. There's no crime here, no antisocial behaviour, no rape gangs, and just one big happy group of citizens enjoying themselves on an impromptu park run. And don't listen to those right-wing fascist propaganda aliens and people on talk and stuff like that, because they're just making it up. That's the truth, right? That's how Sadiq Khan sees it. What about this? Why don't we bring back national service? Everyone who leaves secondary school, boys and girls, get them to do 2 years national service. Bring it back, and no exceptions, including religion. I'll tell you exactly why that wouldn't work, because I suspect our military forces wouldn't give them the time of day. But there's a point there, I suppose. I don't know.
I mean, you've got theft from a person up by over 200% in a decade. I mean, why are we letting this man just blatantly lie to us? And Londoners aren't stupid. They know.
Why have they voted for him? Why did they re-vote for him then? They must have. I believe, and I'm not, you know, we have, as all responsible journalists, there are elections coming and we have to be very straight down the line. And I can say this categorically, whether it's nationally or locally. The British people, the silent majority, the alarm clock Brits that I always talk about, have a very, very stark choice very soon. And included in that choice, by the way, it's not how you vote. I would absolutely say to everybody, whatever your political persuasion, get the hell out and vote. I have never understood, Samara, people who do not exercise their democratic right and then moan and bitch forever. Get out and vote. It's the only way that you're able to effect change in your country, isn't it?
Totally, and vote whichever way you want. We're not telling you how to vote on this station, but I think it is really important. You can't complain about how terrible your life is or how high the taxes are when you're right, you know. And Londoners, a lot of them can't complain about Sadiq Khan and the way that they don't feel safe to take their phone out, the way that they don't feel safe walking home at night, especially as a woman in Sadiq Khan's London. You can't complain about it if you don't at least try to affect change in that way. But I do feel like he lives in a filter bubble of his own existence, and he's completely detracted. I mean, this is a man who drives around with a motorcade in a Range Rover with very heightened security because he says that he feels unsafe because of all the threats towards him.
What about the carbon emissions from his 2 Range Rovers? I watched Susan Hall, the Conservative leader of the Assembly, we had her on the show last week, literally say to him, are there grooming gangs in London? And the dismissive, rude disrespect that man shows, much like a lot of MPs do towards Reform MPs in the House of Commons. This is, I don't understand what the members say. Yeah, you do, Sadiq Khan. Are there rape gangs in London? Of course there are, but you won't acknowledge it. And we know why you won't acknowledge it, because you're concerned about creating a void with a certain demographic. Simon in Norwich, oh, it's so lovely to see the beautiful Samara just before I set off my day's work. Great show, Samara. Don't stop fighting for us. I'll just sit here then as a non-entity because Lady Thatcher's been reincarnated in a blue suit this morning.
I'll take it.
Pardon? Can you say I'm not for turning?
I'm not for turning. I can't do as deep a voice. I need to get my voice even deeper. I need to get some authority in the studio.
You're living in Khan's London. Maybe he provides you with some sort of surgery for that. Morning, Boz.
Morning, JK and the breakfast team. Travelling Boz here. Do you know what? Why is anyone listening to Genghis Khan? He says London is all propaganda and London's safe and all that. Listen, I've got to see him take a walk down the road without his bodyguards and his drive around in his bulletproof Jeep, whatever he's got. Let him go on London transport. The man is deluded. Donald Trump's right about him. He's a horrible little man.
0344 499 1000, text to 87222. The one thing about alarm clock Brits is they're not scared to have their opinions. Lizzie, this is interesting, in East Kilbride. Can you imagine, she says, and this is her opinion, the outrage of Khan if the majority of the youths running amok in Clapham were white?
Oh, I mean, the arrest would be out of hand. I think that it's quite crazy how he got on his social media last night and tried to brag about the 2 arrests. He should be ashamed that there was only 2 arrests made. And I genuinely also think we need to think about the optics. This video, or these collection of videos, went all over the world.
Yep.
This is our city. You are our mayor. This is the central sort of life breath of this country. And unfortunately, people are now seeing that it's been bandied about by youths. They're not going to come here. It's also going to affect the economy massively.
Completely.
So Sadiq, this is very serious stuff. This isn't just some sort of thing to get on your soapbox and preach about. It is it's almost like it's our economy that's at stake here.
I couldn't agree more. Good morning to Mark in Selby. Sorry, could you just ask Samara, does she think it should be mandatory to vote in the UK? What have I become? A message board, have I? Doesn't even mention my name anymore. Samara, I'm your producer. Do you think the UK should make it mandatory to vote? What do you reckon?
I think also he partly probably asked that because in Australia it is mandatory where I'm from, part of the Commonwealth.
Are you from Australia?
Yes, I am.
How did you get here?
Well, you don't want to know.
No.
It's very suspicious. No, all legally, but I think it should be mandatory to vote, although in Australia people do abuse the system and they just will tick any box when they get into the ballots, and you know it's not ideal, but it's probably better because you do have to be a bit more in tune with politics if you know you're going to have to vote.
Ben in Cheshire says Starmer. Oh God, it took me 18 minutes. I am becoming increasingly convinced that the Prime Minister is an alien from another planet because he sure as hell hasn't spent much time on Earth, and especially in the UK in recent years. Does he observe anything? Does he understand anything? Does he ever listen to anyone? It's completely ludicrous. This is the story that, I mean, the PM, page 9 of The Sun, Keir's Brexit blast. PM called to get closer to the EU. He's accused of exploiting the war. Listen, I'm going to shock you a little bit. It turns out that he hasn't called a lot right, if in fact anything. Was he right to say to Trump, no, I don't want to fly those sorties? I might surprise you here, think he was. Was he right to say no to the bases? No, he absolutely wasn't. What I can say is I have been concerned for as long as you can remember that this government is obsessed with getting closer to Europe, who are going to rub their hands with glee and make it as hard as possible. And I do believe that any sort of truth in this is that he will be exploiting this war and a war of words, if you like, with Donald Trump to get closer to Europe. But what I don't understand about that is people say to me, Samara, all the time, but you're wrong, Jez. If there was a referendum today, we wouldn't be in the EU. I don't know whether that's true or not, but we've had a referendum. We were never allowed to implement Brexit as it should have been allowed. I always thought it was I'm a bit old-fashioned. I thought it was a chance for us as an island to go into ourselves, make things and be successful and sell them and show the world that we didn't need to have our hand tied behind our back by the Europeans. But this lot, they want closer and closer relationships, and be in no doubt that they and he will do everything in their power in the next 3 years for us to become the poodle of the EU. I have no doubt about that, and that's quite scary.
It is really scary, and obviously Starmer is inherently a globalist, and I don't mean that in the tinfoil hat sort of way. Yeah. I just mean the way that he's not that sort of careful about our sovereignty. No. He much more cares about being interconnected with Europe and the world, and that's how he sees things ideologically. It's
a very human rights lawyer's approach, isn't it?
Exactly, and it's quite scary in the times that we're living in right now, where it is all about borders and sovereignty and protecting what we have, and unfortunately he just doesn't see that. So I agree. I mean, he is exploiting the war like he's accused of. I mean, calling to get closer to the EU, when they announced that he was going to make that big announcement yesterday, I thought, oh, okay, maybe he'll show some backbone. Maybe he'll say he stands with the British people. No, he clearly stands with the EU, and that's what he was trying to say.
And that's my point. That's my point about this government. I keep talking about political antennae, DNA, just being able to feel the vibe or feel the room. Khan and he are two of the same. They have an ideology that they're going to push through irrespective of the voting public. And I always sit here and I go somewhere every day, but you do realise you're not only going to go down as the worst Prime Minister in history, but you're going to be out on your backside by June. But if you said that to them, they wouldn't care, because they're so focused on how they see this is right, you're all wrong, this is how the world will be a better place. It's almost... It's impossible. It's like Miliband with net zero. You could sit all day and it's like water off a duck's back.
It's a little bit scary, though, even when you see Carl Turner getting the whip removed, and you did that brilliant interview.
He wasn't allowed on my show yesterday.
Wait, he wasn't. Oh, then it must have been Times, our sister station, that I saw the quote from. But he... you know, he basically, it shows that he's got this sort of singular focus. Yep. It's like, how many times have we said, oh, he's going to resign today, he's going to resign? No, he's not, actually, because he does think in a sort of dictatorial way about how he's going to lead the country with his focus, and it's almost worse than someone who's dithering and dathering all over the place. He's actually got this sort of strange confected plan for the United Kingdom, and it seems to be us plummeting into the depths of despair, but in his mind it's the way that we need to go in order to triumph. It's scary days, and I think that Trump can sense that from a mile off and doesn't want anything to do with Starmer. But I agree, I think the two leaders have fractured massively, but are they going in the right direction?
Not in any way. 0344 499 1000. Morning to Alex in Cardiff. I was speaking to my dad, who was born and grew up in London in Catford. You could go out and play with friends and bike to school by the age of 6. He revisited the area just a few months ago and said you could never imagine a child going out alone. Fear of mugging and knife crime in the area has demographically altered dramatically. It's sad, Jezza, from growing up post-war in 1946 to how it is now. Quinn in Rotherhithe, a place... I used to live in Rotherhithe. Good morning. If London is so safe, why does Khan drive around in a bulletproof Range Rover with bodyguards? The man needs to concentrate on what's going on. Dean in East London. He says, Jez Samara, why is it that many, including Khan and the establishment, totally ignore the evidence in front of their eyes? The rubbish he pulls out and puts out is utterly despicable. Graham is a joiner. Do you know what a joiner is?
Yes, it's like a person, wood, wardrobes.
Hands are going like wood. Hands are like grapple, David Bellamy. Well, grapple my way.
I'm doing an interpretive dance. If you're listening.
Very nice. Maggie's on one. Morning, Jez. Graham the joiner here. These jokers in power all have to go. Why can't they see what the British public are seeing, and why can't they listen to us? I agree. Dan, morning JK. It's all about respect, or the lack of. I'm your age, Jez, and like you, have absolute respect for my parents and grandparents who went through World War II. My kids have respect for me, but nothing like I did with my parents and my grandchildren. Have little or no respect. So many kids have the same. Unfortunately, wokery is a byproduct of 80 years of peace. Good morning to Martin in Woolwich. This has touched the nerve, Sadiq Khan. I honestly believe Khan is a danger to London. To me, he looks like an alcoholic who can't see he's the one with the problem. I'm sick and sorry for the analogy, he says it's early in the morning. I'm sick and tired of Sadiq Khan constantly peeing on my shoes and telling me it's raining, says Martin in Woolwich. I think that just about sums up how people feel this morning. 0344 419 1000. Do you know where we're going next?
Where are we going?
We're going to the United States of America. He's a very bad man. Back in a minute. Breaking news and Talk Breakfast. Two men, aged 47 and 45, have in the last hour been arrested in connection with the Golders Green arson attack. To me, symbolising absolutely a rise in anti-Semitism. Again, nothing from the government.
Breaking news. It's just a small matter. They have just an announcement saying transgender girls, i.e. boys, they must leave girl guiding by this September the 6th.
We are buying from Norway because they fully exploit their share of the North Sea oil and gas fields, and we don't. Alice in Wonderland, no.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk.
Welcome back, my friends. 6:28. It is Thursday morning, the 2nd of April. We're live across the UK with Talk Breakfast, the home of common sense and the home of the alarm clock. Brit, you're waking up to the news that Donald Trump addressed the nation last night, said the war's almost over and he's going to bomb. Well, have a listen. Morning, Donald.
I can say tonight that we are on track to complete all of America's military objectives shortly, very shortly. We're going to hit them extremely hard over the next 2 to 3 weeks. We're going to bring them back to the Stone Ages where they belong. In the meantime, discussions are ongoing. Regime change was not our goal. We never said regime change, but regime change has occurred because of all of their original leaders' death. They're all dead.
Right, let's cross. This should be fun. We're going to take both sides of the arguments tomorrow night. We say a very good morning to Amy Tarkanian, Republican strategist, live in Nevada. We also say a very good morning to Michael Yaki, US political analyst and former senior advisor. Good God, you're an advisor to Nancy Pelosi. You're a brave man. Good morning, Pete. Can I just start by saying, and Samara is with me, Donald Trump is in so many ways to people here somebody who, you know, says things and stands by it. But even my judgment would be he's starting to derail slightly. But my first point about this as a country that you live in, I'll start with you, Amy. Apparently from when he sat down, having said or stood down, we are going to be pulling out within 3 weeks, right? His approval rating went up 5% in an instant poll. Are Americans that gullible, with the greatest respect?
Well, I don't think that we are gullible. I am glad to see that he addressed the nation. I wish that he would have done that actually before they decided to go into war. That's historically what our presidents do, is they address us to give us more of a buy-in, tell us the why, tell us what our involvement is, give us a general idea of why it's so important and what it is that our role would be during that time. But that didn't happen. So I think this, even though some may say this was too little too late, I am grateful, though, that he at least did it. We didn't learn too much new, though, however. This wasn't really a detailed exit plan. It was more of a rah, we're winning and we're wrapping it up. He still left it very vague, left it very flexible. So then that way, when we do still continue to retaliate and fight with Iran, it's not going to be a surprise from here on out. There's no way that he can completely say that we are fully removing. I find it interesting that the UK summit is being hosted tomorrow with over 30 plus countries. If that were the case, and this was truly over, then there would be no need for the summit.
Michael, welcome. I'm looking forward to the Democratic angle. You've got a slight smile on your face. Donald Trump, is this the first time we've seen the man outmanoeuvred? Europe, and God, don't expect me to be sticking up for our Prime Minister or the coalition of the willing. That's the worst phrase ever. But this is the first time that the strong-arm tactics haven't worked. That would be a fair criticism. And you see a man who is not floundering, but certainly backtracking. Would that be a fair comment, Michael?
Well, I think that it's a little premature to say that this is the first time. I mean, I would say that Vladimir Putin has been outmaneuvering him since his very first term, and even probably before that, in terms of the courting that he did, and the fact that he managed to convince Trump, the idea that it'd be probably okay, if we try to work with you on this whole election issue. But I think that here, what you have is a situation where he's clearly in way over his head. This is going to war is a very serious and sober decision by any president, by any foreign leader. This seems to have been done at the spur of the moment. He keeps on blaming, he says nasty things about the prime minister and everybody else. But the fact is that most American presidents, in fact, all American presidents, could have consulted with them before they go in. Look, we're going to be going in. This is probably going to have an impact on oil. So let's all get together, figure out how we're going to work on this. But we're going to go in, and we'd like you to be part of it. That conversation never occurred. And what you see here is that all the wargaming that every president has done since 1979, because believe me, every American president has in their bones wanted to do something more like what Donald Trump did over the past month, but they didn't do it, and they didn't do it for very specific reasons. When you game this out, the thing that always comes up is, what are you going to do about that little tiny narrow entryway called the Straits of Hormuz, and how is that going to impact world oil prices, the energy needs of all our nations? They knew every war game on that said that's going to be the choke point. That will be the problem. He didn't care, and now everyone is essentially paying the price, including Americans, where gasoline has gone up over $1 in the past 3 weeks.
It's still about $57 cheaper than it is in the United Kingdom. I'll take your point. Samara, do you see a man who's on the back foot here?
I think we're seeing the consequences of what happens when you are so America first and not thinking about any of the other countries. And that's how Donald Trump got into power, and that's how he wants his legacy to be remembered. But I think there's a big issue here. You know, Britain, Europe and Asia have been left by the wayside. Trump has forgotten the #1 thing about war: know thy enemy. And I think he totally underestimated the power of the Middle East. If you think about it, America has never really been that successful within the Middle East. I think he saw the success of Venezuela, removing Maduro, putting in power Delcy Rodriguez. That's easy because that isn't really an ideology that you're replacing. But what you're dealing with here is Islamic fundamentalism, which you can't really curtail overnight, let's just say. And the Iranians are very smart people. They know what they're doing. They basically traded their nuclear capabilities for holding the world at ransom with their with the Strait of Hormuz and the oil. So I think they've actually managed to kind of strong-arm Trump in this situation, and he's now walking away. It's a very difficult situation.
Amy, as a Republican, I know you've been critical of Donald Trump in the past. We've spoken many times, and we appreciate you being on the show. He's all about legacy. He's all about change, as Michael said, and Samara. It's all about strong-arm tactics. That has rather thrown itself back at him. Can he recover from this, do you think, in the eyes of the American people?
Well, I think that's what we're witnessing. He's definitely making that attempt, and that's why he chose to address the nation, not just do a random press junket. So I think that makes it a huge difference in itself. You know, quick wars are definitely more favorable politically. We have midterm elections coming up, but now we're worried about what's the end for the long game. What are we looking at economically? What are we looking at humanitarian wise? We understand that the Iranian regime murdered thousands and thousands of its own people, and we want nothing but the best for them. But at what cost, and what is the strategy? What is the end game? And the fact that we are moving the goalposts, or he's moving the goalposts with his messaging, his mixed messaging, has been a huge concern. And I think that's why he's now trying to say that this is going to end sooner than later, because he's getting big pushback from his own party.
Michael, just to finish, grateful to you both. How would you describe Don? I mean, obviously you supported Nancy Pelosi, so you're slightly mad yourself, but I don't mean that badly. How do you see Donald Trump's presidency going so far, Michael?
Well, look, I believe I love our country, and I support our country in terms of what it is we try to do. What Donald Trump is doing, though, is not that. And I think what's interesting is that he's actually betraying his own supporters. America First was meant to be what I think what Samara said in the earlier break about looking inward, about doing more production, and he's totally put that to the wayside. He's lost people like Marjorie Taylor Greene, which is really, really, really odd to think about, because of the fact that he's engaging in everything but looking at the American economy, looking at American production, looking at the kitchen table issues that got him elected.
I was going to say, he got elected, didn't he, by saying that I will change and make better your economy for you, and I won't get embroiled in foreign wars. And that's the truth. Listen, right. I've said on many occasions on this show to everybody that there is much initially about Donald Trump that I admire, and I wish I had a leader in this country who had the backbone and the nous to say, this is what I'm going to do. You can disagree with me, but this is what I'm going to do, because that gives you sort of clarity of thought. Right. But there's no doubt, as the headline, he is being shunted. There's no doubt he's being strong-armed, and there's absolutely no doubt, whether it's through support of Russia or just the Iranian, a misjudgment by the Iranian people, that he is looking for an exit strategy. And
Jeremy, one thing I have admired about Donald Trump is that unpredictability can be an asset in leadership, because it means people can't just take you for granted. But unpredictability with chaos, which is what's going on right now in the Middle East, that's not good for anyone, and that's the result we're seeing right now.
I'm going to read this from Rachel. I think it sums up the whole conversation. Morning, Jez, Samara. I'm a huge fan of Donald Trump. However, I have to be honest with you, he seems to be going from one position to the complete opposite with regard to Iran. And for many of us who have supported him, I'm very, very nervous. Michael, great to have you on. Amy as well. Late night in the United States, but we thank you. Two opinions, actually, two political parties both saying the same. Whether you like him or loathe him, to come to power and have the courage to stand by his principles, fantastic. But he's gone against the very thing that he sold himself to the American people as.
I mean, he said never wars, no wars, I'm the president of peace. Now I'm starting to think they should have given him that Nobel Peace Prize last year, so maybe he wouldn't have done this. But, I mean, Donald, what happened to the price of eggs? That's what you were meant to bring down, not bring the price of oil up.
I couldn't agree more. Morning, Matt.
Morning, Jezza and the Breakfast Gang. It's Matt in Warrington loading the van. So, Starmer got this big plan that he'll make Lord Khan and he'll send him to America as the international envoy, so he can really wind Trump up, and that'll really get Trump's back up, and then he can get closer to Europe, and then he can bring us back into Europe and save us, because it was such a good time when we was all part of the EU. You remember? It was amazing, wasn't it?
Across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Welcome back. It's Talk, it's Breakfast, it's the home of common sense and free speech, and Lady Samara Gill is with us in her Lady Thatcher-inspired outfit this morning. We say a very good morning to Chris. Morning, Chrissy.
Morning, Jezza. Morning, gorgeous Samara. Chris from Epsom. One thing that's been missed out at the moment as Starmer tries to sidle up closer to Europe, the EU have just taken a vote on arrest, detention and deportation of illegal immigrants. How's that going to fit in with Starmer's plan?
It isn't going to fit in with his plan. These are the stories you're waking up to, that he wants to get closer to Europe. Donald Trump wants to move away from Europe, and NATO wants to bomb Iran into the Stone Age. London's a safe city, says the completely deranged Sadiq Khan. And in a minute, Rachel Reeves, who's finally shown a bit of backbone and reckons we should drill in the North Sea because she's skin. However, I bet you don't know what today is. Thank you, Dave H. One for the production team. Thursday, the 2nd of April, 1982... the Falkland Islands was invaded. That is 44 years ago. I'm grateful to still be here to remember those whose lives were lost. Would it be good, please, if you could mention the 255 and the 3 island civilians who aren't here but who are still remembered? There are still many, many hundreds who still hurt from back then on a daily basis. Thanks, Team Dave Dorset, Royal Navy retired and a Falklands veteran. And Dave, very happy to make that mention. I'm going to tell you in a bit about a wonderful book I've been sent by a listener about what our Navy was. And without making it political, well, actually, I'm going to make it political. Whether you liked Thatcher or not, we managed to send 8,000 miles a Navy to reclaim land that was the United Kingdom's land. We faced losses, he's quite right, 255 and 3 civilian islanders. but we did what was right. Can you imagine, in the name of God, how people like Dave, veterans, genuinely look at where we're at today, having put their lives on the line 44 years ago? Not in a million years.
Well, we just had to borrow from Germany, so that's where we're at. We had to borrow a couple of ships from them. So
I think my low point of the year was the let's send a boat to Akrotiri because, you know, we've been bombed by the Iranians. And it wasn't just that it took HMS dragging your feet 3 weeks, right? What really got me was the landlocked country that is Luxembourg is landlocked and got a boat there sooner.
Of course, and by the time it arrived, Trump had then changed his stance. So, I mean, it's rusty at the back. It's effectively like sending a wheelchair into battle.
Yeah.
I mean, it's embarrassment.
Loads of you getting involved. Morning, Dan. Trump secured US energy by going into Venezuela first and foremost. He doesn't give a toss about the Iranian regime. It was always about stopping oil and gas. I think, ultimately, he'll come out on top and say it's good business for America. Margaret, it seems the UK is broken. The rampage in London by young people, the burning of ambulances, the murders and rapes of young women, and all gets forgotten when the next incident happens. Couldn't agree more. Morning to Carl in Derbyshire. I'm absolutely sick to the back teeth of Donald Trump's BS now. I fear this big orange half, which is going to put Nigel Farage's progress back. Nigel seriously needs to distance himself from this whole mess, and soon. I've been reading about this, that as the tide turns against Trump, what is the reform leader going to do? Thoughts?
You know, I think Nigel's actually been pretty... he's had a lot of conviction when he's spoken about his disagreements with Trump. I mean, that friendship doesn't mean that they can't actually stick up for their own countries. I think Nigel probably made a bit of a misstep agreeing with him at first with this war, but then he's backtracked on that and he's actually sided with the British people. So I think when it comes to that friendship, it does seem like Farage will put the country first.
If you listened to me a month ago and you listen to me today, I would be able to be accused of exactly the same. What I didn't know at the time, and I'm being completely straight, was we thought that Starmer had simply said no to anything. The truth was he said no to being involved, but then he pontificated about the bases. I'd have given the bases to the Americans in a heartbeat, OK? In a heartbeat. Was it wise to go in? In hindsight, probably not. I don't know. It's interesting. Jez, on the theme of the orange man, trust the plan always, says Simon in Durham. You see, people like that will say that actually it's one. I wonder, Jay, if Keir Starmer has been approached by the Guinness World Records yet to receive his award for the most hated person. Great show, Samara, and your co-host is slightly mediocre. Do you want to hear a story about the most hated man in the world? This is absolutely true. At the height of the Jeremy Kyle show, my agent rang me one day, it's brilliant, and said, Jess, GQ have done an article, what is it, a poll, and it's the most hated man in the world, and Pol Pot came 5th, and Adolf Hitler came 4th. And the Ayatollah, do you know, I think it was the Ayatollah Khomeini came 3rd, you came 2nd, and Osama bin Laden came 1st. And he actually said to me, you can't even win that, you idiot. And then, this is dead true, it's in my study, when Saddam Hussein was taken out by the Americans, I got given the GQ Most Hated Person in the World award posthumously. And I've got it in my study. Alongside Cavonia, who once voted me Gob SHIT of the year, and they gave me a lifetime supply, so there you go.
I mean, you know,
most hated man in England, nothing, Sadiq Khan. Conquer the world, me old son. Can we talk about Rachel Reeves? I mean, this is extraordinary.
Yeah, speaking of hated.
Yes,
I mean...
Rachel, front of the Telegraph, Rachel Reeves backs North Sea drilling as she opens up rift with Miliband. Now, many people who believe, and quite rightly, that she is joined at the hip with Keir Starmer, and as his political sort of future starts to wander southwards, is this a move deliberately to save her own back? Because that's the first common sense thing that's come out the Chancellor's mouth ever, isn't it?
Well, is this a move to get rid of Miliband in some sort of way? Because he's vying up for the job. I think he'd really like to be Prime Minister, and that really would be quite terrible. That would be the end. I mean, look...
He's calling the shots, Ed Miliband. He is definitely calling the shots.
He is. I mean, what I would say is, Rachel, too little too late. Like, it is over now. We have crossed the line. The ship has effectively sailed. You can't
No,
now
it hasn't. It's not ready to sail.
Well,
Don't be so rude.
you can't now be rowing back what you've been saying for years about net zero now that you're actually feeling the economic pressures of things. I mean, she's reminding me of a teenager who's socialist for their teen years and then comes back into capitalism and conservatism after they actually face the pressures and pay a bit of tax on their pay slip.
Well, she's skint. She's skint, isn't she? She's skint and she can see herself. But the thing about Miliband, Sam, he doesn't... Just watch this yesterday. It's a bit like Khan and very much like Starmer. No part of common sense gets through to this man. Morning, Ed.
Those people who say new exploration licenses, which is the issue people are talking about, will somehow create huge amounts of energy for us.
But what does that clip say? The clip doesn't say anything. I think that clip was wrong, but basically he said they're wrong. So giving a licence to drill oil and gas that we own, taking it out of the ground and selling it to give us money, according to Ed Miliband, is not sensible at all. What you do is you don't give drilling licences, you don't have ways of making what you need, so you buy it from people who've started to drill in the place that you own and then sell it to you for more.
Well, exactly. We're buying it off Norway that's drilling it in the same sea that we have access to. We have access to the other half. We actually could be producing it ourselves. It's sycophantic what's going on.
It doesn't even make sense.
I mean, Rachel said, I'm very happy that we are. The North Sea oil and gas will play an important role in our energy mix for years to come. Well, we don't have years, Rachel.
No.
We've got to be drilling like tomorrow.
And we can't drill, Rachel, because your stupid government has cancelled all the licences. And here I will stick up for the Tories. It was open. It was taking place. It's just, for me, a basic economic thing. You're massively in debt and somebody says in your garden, there's all that money under the grass. I'm not going to do it because it'll upset the look of the grass or the people. Oh, but the people next door are drilling underneath your fence. You know that, don't you? Morning, Paula.
Morning, JK. Morning, Samara. Great show as always. Paula from Essex, Alarm Clock Britain crew. I just want to say, if Starmer thinks he can just put us back into the EU, I think he's going to find a bit of, pushback, because we had a referendum. We voted for this. If he thinks he can just put us back in without voting, I think that's a bit of a cheeky move. Thoughts?
Thoughts? Cheeky, yes, but I think not even cheeky, just completely plotted. I think the British people, July 2024, were completely duped. Well, actually, they weren't duped. They were. So hated with the Tories. I don't think anybody stops and went, do you think that this lot will be as bad as... I mean, you're too young. I remember 1979. I said every single day, we will be skint, the unions will take over, there will be lawlessness on the streets, because nobody is going to stand up to the many different, diverse, I hate that word, sections that he's had to placate to get to power in the first place.
I mean, it's craven and it's undemocratic what he's trying to do by getting back into the EU, and it should be taken really seriously. I'm almost concerned that there hasn't been more outrage about his comments from yesterday. The people voted one way, Keir. What's going to happen next election when you get voted out, potentially? Are you going to also say, no, let me back in? I think it's genuinely the same sort of edict. So I think we should be really concerned about his language at the moment, because it shouldn't go unchecked.
I think he's, and I've been really honest, I do think he's dangerous. I think that those sorts of things, if you believe we should rejoin the EU, then Keir Starmer's your man. But for many people who didn't vote you look at it and you see him slowly crawl. I have a real pet hate, by the way, I should tell you about this. The coalition of the willing. If there was one thing that would sum up him in my mind, it is that. What an odious title for a sad bunch of people who frankly are never going to be able to make the right coalition of the willing. I mean, honestly, do you know what I mean? I'm with you. I would have preferred him to have stood and say, I said this before, right? Jeremy Corbyn, I'd never agree with anything, but at least he stood up and he said, that's what I do. And he got more votes than Starmer did. I mean, alien to what I believe in.
No, but of course, I mean, we're seeing with the rise of the Green Party that people do want someone with actual conviction, not someone, as you said, who's trying to placate everyone in every which direction.
Or a conviction.
Or a conviction, you know, the bar is pretty
people
low.
who sell heroin. They're all going to vote for the heroin, for the Green Party. Can we just talk Scott Mills very quickly? The BBC fallout still happening. It turns out the BBC did know of Scott Mills' police investigation in 2017. He broke his silence yesterday afternoon, thanking his listeners and confirming that he was the subject of that police investigation, which is obviously I mean, look, it's not for us to judge a situation, but I can only say from my own experience, when a major newspaper launches a story on a Monday and drip feeds it during the week, I would have to suspect that there's going to be some sort of other part to this, probably in a Sunday newspaper, but we don't know. But it does, as it did yesterday, highlight for me the appalling vetting process at the BBC, and quite frankly puts them quite right in the spotlight. You want to raise the TV licence? I can't. I don't get it anymore. I really don't.
I mean, the plot thickens, doesn't it, after yesterday? I think with Scott Mills, we really need to look at the mismanagement of the BBC. I mean, they've again been taken to task by the fact that they haven't... I mean, the thing is, they always jump before they're pushed. Everyone who's...
Or they don't jump at all, and then they go, well, we should have jumped.
Precisely, and we've got Tim Davie. It's his penultimate week.
Is it his last day today?
I believe
it is today,
it's his last day today.
Bye.
Exactly, but he's leaving Matt Britton, who's coming in from Google, a massive sort of suite of issues. He's got the $10 billion lawsuit from Donald Trump. He's got the Scott Mills thing to figure out. I think that he's leaving the BBC in a right mess in some ways. And, you know, look, with this sort of thing, why are they allowing Scott Mills to be trialled by the media? I mean, the media has been having to run all this discourse around him. The lack of transparency from the BBC is putting everyone's lives into disrepute. And if the BBC is found to actually have been to have dismissed him on a basis of something that happened many years ago, then they're in for another massive lawsuit.
I don't know, but this would be this would be my view. If they knew, why did they give him the job? If he, yesterday in his speech, right, you're absolutely right. If it was based entirely, the sacking, on something that he already told them...
He did tell them.
Then I'd be suing them. But I think the fact that it was quite a placatory statement, and I have to tread very carefully, would point to the fact that there could maybe be more to this story. That's all I can, at this moment, hold on to. But listen, I don't want to talk about Scott Mills. I don't want to talk about individuals. I want to talk about an organisation that wants to put the licence fee up, that expects me to pay 180 quid, and we've only got a minute, but sent 46 million letters in the last 12 months to people saying, if you don't pay your fee, we're going to get you prosecuted. That's the real story here. They're done. They're done, the BBC. They should be defunded.
They're more interested in door-knocking grannies than actually gutting out all the rot that's within their own institution, and that's where the issues lie. I think let's hope that when the new leadership comes in, you know, there are talks that there might be a new subscription model introduced.
Good.
There might be different ways of making sure that the BBC is held to account, and I think I can only welcome any sort of change.
Are you going home, or are you staying a bit? What are you doing?
I'm staying.
She's staying, apparently. Listen, we've got James Price kicking off the next hour. It's 0344 499 1000. It is Talk Breakfast. We're live across the UK. You're waking up on Thursday the 2nd. Trump's going to bomb Iran to the Stone Age and do one on NATO. Keir Starmer's desperate to rejoin the EU, and Rachel Reeves has woken up to the fact she can pay off her debts if she drills in the North Sea. All of that and JP and Samara next on Talk Breakfast.
across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Labour MP, they say, listen, Keir, your position is untenable. This is all about appointing that rat, Peter Mandelson.
We've now had another resignation from number 10. The plot is sickening, the noose is tightening.
His failings are internal. He's useless, incompetent, has no political judgment.
This is all part of Starmer's reset, getting rid of his inner circle. So Chris Wormold, we think fairly reluctantly, has stepped down.
What an absolutely crazy week for Keir Starmer. His second cabinet secretary, gone. His third chief of staff, gone. His fourth director of communications, gone.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
A very good morning to you. Just gone 7 o'clock. This is Talk, the home of common sense and the home of the alarm clock Brit. A very good... The sun is rising. There's a spring in my step and my hat is not at a jaunty angle. Easter is approaching. And Samara Gillis, it's the holiday period, has decided to stay because she's nowhere to go. She's dressed up like Margaret Thatcher today.
Yeah, this is dressed for the job you want, really.
There you go. 0344 499 1000. What are you waking up to? Well, you're waking up to some pretty interesting headlines. Donald Trump is going to bomb Iran into the Stone Age, but withdraw from the war in 3 weeks, and he's probably going to tell NATO to shove it where the sun don't shine. He keeps ranting. Many people will say, don't misjudge, there's a plan. Others are going, he is derailing. I'd say this about America, by the way. He addressed the nation, didn't he, Samara, yesterday? And in a 20-minute speech that was quite low-key, he said, we're out of here. We're out of here in three weeks. We've done everything. Within an hour, his approval rating had gone up 5%. And who says America's a hard country to conquer? At home, I think we should be worried about this. Keir Starmer is edging closer to the EU, the coalition of the willing. I thought we voted to leave. I think he's out of his depth. Rachel Reeves. Richard III's woken up and worked out that if we drill in the North Sea, we'll pay off some of our debts. I think it's about saving her bacon. And Sadiq Khan, sorry, I make no apology for this. London is safe. That teenage mob that stormed Clapham, 300 of them, right? That didn't happen. This is false propaganda spread by the far right to make people think that London's not great. What, so what, they're just actors, are they? All these kids running around, Sadiq Khan, you liar. Liar, liar, pants on fire. Good morning, El.
Morning, Jezza. If you listen to my voice notes that go back a year, I've been saying this from the very beginning. He hates England, Starmer does. He wants to go back into Europe. This is a great way for him to do it, but he also wants us to be part of the European army. So he's run us down, so we're going to have to rejoin to be part of that. So all these people who are saying they don't like the idea of war, your young boys will be, you know, they're 18, they're going to be conscripted soon. You watch.
I don't think conscripted. Can you imagine? How old can he be conscripted to? Is 62? Right, yeah, bring it in. Fine, fantastic. That's a great idea. 0344 499 1000. Morning to Rob, me old mucker in Newcastle. We'll play yours in a minute. Christian's on it. But we say good morning to... I love this man. There are many people that we speak to on the show, but this man, he reminds me of a younger me and a bit like my dad. Love him. James Price, former government advisor. Morning, boy.
Well, how can it get any better than that? I should just sign off now and pretend to have internet issues. God bless you, my friend.
Everything good. Samara, dressed like Mrs. Thatcher this morning, James. Have you noticed in the blue suit, like she's going to start sort of holding a rally or something?
It's absolutely fantastic. Can Samara do the impression is the question. You might notice over my head here, that is an original 1979 Conservative Party manifesto. Obviously next to the Bible, because I'm just that mad.
So, Samara, we need to work at this. You might turn. The lady's not for turning.
There are all I'll say is...
No, just do the impression.
There are two people. There is Jesus Christ and Margaret Thatcher, and one of them was a carpenter. I mean, genuinely, you might... So...
I would only say our current Prime Minister is the son of a toolmaker. But anyway, let's move on. JP, can we talk firstly about the deranged human being? And I'm not being rude, that is Sadiq Khan. You, I know, have moved out to the country. I don't live in London. Samara does. But those scenes the other day in Clapham, and many people saying that many of the faces on screen were not white. I'm not getting embroiled in that, but I will say this. A mob rule. Cars being attacked, shops being invaded, looting, one or two police sort of wandering around saying, please stop. This was apparently inspired by the internet, by social media. Sadiq Khan, after that, look at that policeman. Oh, would you mind shutting up? Just put the cufflinks on and drag them away. Sadiq Khan, is that London is the safest city and people are simply spreading false propaganda because it serves their interests, James Price.
Yeah, absolutely right. You know, Sadiq Khan has never lied to us before. Diversity is our strength. The truth is justice. It's all absolutely fine, right? You don't need to listen to your eyes or your ears or any of these scenes that you're seeing. That to me looks like an AI deep fake. You know, we can all just do this stuff. It's much easier when you're a lefty, right? You just have to say these obvious lies enough, and there will always be a small proportion of the country who will stay with you. And of course, as more of us leave London, as I have done, many more people are allowed to come in, most of them on small boats, who don't realise what Sadiq Khan is like as a mayor and will eventually start voting for him. So a nice steady importation of new voters for him will keep him in power ad infinitum, ad nauseum. I've been trying to work out what you do about this scenario, because organising a bunch of kids to turn up somewhere on the street using TikTok and Snapchat, which is what I think they're doing, and I think we'll see a lot more of it over the Easter weekend, that's not in itself illegal. And then the kind of low-level running around screeching, shoplifting stuff is the next level up. You know, what are we going to do about these kids? Because they're not going to have any actual consequences. When this happened at Brent Cross, also in London, I think January last year, they stole something like 50 grand's worth of kit from the iPhone store, and one teenager, you know, got good justice of £100 fine for about the 50 grand's worth of phones and stuff that got nicked. I think in this that happened in Clapham, there were two 13-year-old girls arrested and now released on bail, and one 15-year-old who got charged for something. So it's good that those 4 teenage girls have been taken off the streets. Oh no, wait, not even that has happened. So what are we going to do about this? Are we going to talk about the breakdown in families that lead to all of this, the lack of male role models? Are we going to talk about some of the cultural issues? You mentioned there that some people have talked about the fact that almost all the kids in these images are black, and Kemi Badenoch came out and said, well, you don't see these scenes happening in Lagos or Nairobi. Cue a lot of people replying to her, showing videos of exactly these sorts of riots happening in these places. But I agree with you that we shouldn't be going down the sort of racial routes on these things. We should be looking at what solutions there actually are. Are we going to get a politician who says, young offenders institutions are a total mess. They've been a total mess since, God bless her, the Blessed Margaret, got rid of Borstalls by, I think, 1982.
True.
And actually what was replaced them has been actually worse. And the attempt at bringing back what's called a secure school, which is on, I think, the original site of the first Borstal outside Rochester in Kent, has had to already stop taking new people in. The doors wouldn't shut properly and were being turned into weapons, and God knows what else was happening. So I think the only solution is going to be something that doesn't sound very nice to our soft and delicate sensibilities, which is to taking kids like this out of mainstream education, taking them off the streets and putting a bit of discipline into them and saying, if you don't sort yourselves out now, you are going to have a life of, at best, despondency and uselessness to your fellow man. And at worst, you're going to end up a criminal in our massively overcrowded prisons. And if we're not honest about those life outcomes for kids, then we're all sunk.
I don't mean to sound like either of your parent, but you two at this moment, not together, separately, don't have kids. And I get really enraged about this, right? I can sit here and I can say, we were scared of the police. You know, you'd come home from school, you go out on your bike. If the police felt your collar and took you home to your mum, you're in trouble. That's the way it was, right? There was a degree of respect. I listen, Jay, and I agree with you about, you know, this soft and delicate approach. We've become a society, in my mind, that is so apologetic in almost everything it stands for that nobody that carries out something that I consider antisocial or even criminal knows anything about what the consequences are. I am sick and tired about people telling me society, schools and all that. I absolutely will stand by the belief that the breakdown of the family unit, the lack of discipline that comes from home, the imposition of rules and the boundaries that are set and the consequences that are levied if you don't do that starts at home. People will say, oh, you've got kids, yeah, and I brought them all up. And I hope to God, and people used to have a go at me and say, well, what if they're on drugs? If you interviewed my 3 eldest kids, they will tell you with a dead straight face, if my dad ever caught me taking drugs, I've told them I'll take them to a crack den and leave them there for 24 hours. And I'm not even joking, right? I'm not even joking. I stole when I was 8. In those days, Woolworths had, you wouldn't know what Woolworths was, it's a store.
No, we haven't
and it
in
had
Australia.
open sweets. And I took a lemon sherbet and she dragged me by my ear, my mother, to the manager of Woolworths to apologise and stop my pocket money for a month, and I would never do that again. I am sick and tired of people taking responsibility away from parents. If my kid was running amok in Clapham with or without a knife, I'd like to think I would not only bloody well know about it, but I'd do something about it. I'm so passionate on this. Does my head in.
No, I agree with you, and I think James makes a really good point that also we shouldn't go down the racial route of this. But what we
because that's what Khan wants, by the way.
No,
that's what Khan
all he wants.
That's why I won't either.
But it is the overhang of the BLM riots. I think that there is some synergy to that, and it's also about probably back in your day, JK, there wasn't social media.
There wasn't even electricity. Dear.
Well, these things are called link-ups, apparently. So
right.
they're all organised on sort of Facebook and Instagram and online chat groups, and that's how they were able to meet in these vast big numbers and create so much debauchery.
But then if they do turn up, if you know the police are going to feel your collar or throw you in somewhere for the night, you're not going to do it. There's no consequences, is there, guys? Jay, there isn't, is there? There isn't.
No, I think that's the problem, and that's why these kids feel emboldened. There were plenty of people wearing balaclavas for some of this, but the scariest thing is there are plenty of people who weren't, right? We see all these kids' faces and they don't feel that there are going to be any repercussions or consequences, or maybe worse even than that, if they do think there are some small ones like getting a criminal record or whatever, they don't care because they don't feel they've got any kind of life chances or anything going on for them either. My best pal is a criminal barrister. I was talking to him about this yesterday and was saying that what ends up happening is you get these kids at the moment who end up going into prisons, adult prisons, once they hit 18 or whatever, and they end up joining gangs that they were never in the first place and learning all the other horrible things that you can do and the ways to get involved in drugs and all the rest of it as well. Which again, it goes back to my idea that we need, in some way, it's going to sound very regressive, to bring back Borstal of some sort, where you actually put these kids away somewhere. And once you've got them away somewhere secure, away from the bad influences, away from, frankly, although I agree with you on parents who don't seem to give a monkeys about these sorts of things,
Absolutely.
or are there, and then you can say, right, okay, your parents have failed you, and society up to this point, to some extent, has failed you, because a lot of these people are just still children. And I know there are a lot of trans activists who want to give children lots of agency, certainly enough to chop their bits off. Sorry for talking about that at this time of the morning, but they are children.
Just had a
do have
banana
community
as well.
responsibility, and therefore we should put these kids somewhere safe, and we should knock some sense into them, metaphorically, of course.
I honestly, I couldn't listen to this, right, guys? Nigel Brown, morning, Jez. So these kids can do whatever they seemingly want in Clapham. However, there are people still in prison who dared to protest over the murder and maiming of children in Southport.
Oh, goodness. I mean, let me just ask you one question. Do you know what the top job that children want these days is? Every time they're polled, it's YouTuber. Now,
it used to be. I did a poll once when I was on the television. You asked kids what they wanted to be, Jay, you'd love this, and the top answer was famous.
Yeah, famous
honestly,
YouTuber.
honestly.
No, but I actually think we need to look into this as well, because this is what they're basing their behaviour off, what they see online. You've got these TikTokers, these YouTubers who go around and rabble-rouse and don't face the consequences of it. They do it all the time in the US. When you look at the violence online, and I'm not really calling for a police state where we go and, you know, start locking up those who go and do silly things, but I do really think that this is actually a symptom and a consequence of online culture and the way that people are being totally held up within our society now for doing horrible things.
I don't recognise, honestly, I talk about him a lot, the old man. I'm turning into, I'm beginning to not recognise, right, this country, just some of the values that I always took for granted, Jay, have dissipated? I don't know. I mean, yes, absolutely, I agree with you, Samara. High-tech companies. By the way, most of these influencers, it's the con kids. That's what it is. I've listened and watched, but what I call traditional values, how can you expect... people say, well, these poor kids have nowhere to go. We had to go to work. They can sign on. I remember somebody once saying to me on a show, there's more credence doing this than getting an ASBO. I've slapped a couple of policemen, but I don't care. That would never have happened 30 years ago. And we laugh at it because it's so stupid, but it's happening.
Yeah, I think this idea that, oh, there's not enough youth centres. This is what you'll see. I guarantee you, Labour politicians, not enough youth clubs, not enough foosball tables, all the rest of it. It's just complete nonsense. And I think it was George W. Bush who coined this term, the soft bigotry of low expectations. There's no reason to suggest that any of these kids running around South London have an excuse to do this. When I was growing up, my parents were very busy building up their business, that, by the way, saved loads of lives and it was a great thing to do. I entertained myself to some extent. I'd sit there and read a book. I'd go and find some friends. You go and do this. And if these kids don't feel they can do that, then they do need either parents to hit them, hit them again metaphorically, with some consequences. And if the parents aren't there to do it, the state should reprimand them. And again, there should be some system for doing this. This is the difficulty. When the system has already failed, you can't really have the kind of nice, cuddly, liberal, laissez-faire attitude. You've got to do something a bit different. And I could just use the example very briefly in El Salvador, which I like to talk about a lot.
He likes El Salvador.
El Salvador was the most dangerous place on earth. Drug gangs ran absolutely everything. What do? They elected a guy who came in and he just locked them all up. And now it's the safest place in the Western Hemisphere. They're rebuilding cathedrals. Businesses are thriving. Families are growing. All the
weekend breaks are fun in El Salvador now.
Do you know what happened there? The Americans, who had a load of these kids that were brought up over there, they sent all these kids, deported all these young kids under 18 from El Salvador back to El Salvador, where the drug gangs got them all and said, you're under 18, you're not going to be prosecuted in the same way, come and join our gangs. So El Salvador had this problem on steroids. And what did it do again? Locked them all up. And then you can start to rehabilitate people if you think that's important.
Couldn't agree more. What should make of Rachel Reeves deciding to back drilling in the North Sea all of a sudden, in something of a rift with the odious Ed Miliband? What are your thoughts on that? We're a bit perplexed here. Survival?
Look, in chapter 15 verse 7 of the Gospel according to Luke, there's more rejoicing in heaven over one sinner who repenteth than 99 just men who need not repent. Rachel Reeves, you have understood and relearnt the basic economics that you would have learned if you had actually had a 10-year career in the private sector, which you lied about. But thank God someone understands this and is willing to stand up to the most bonkers person ever to sit around the cabinet table in Ed Miliband or Wallace from Wallace and Gromit.
It's so true. I think he is bonkers and I think he is dangerous. But the reality is, peeps, we're talking about a man who's already pulling the strings and could quite conceivably, if Labour members, if they get rid of Starmer after those May elections, the reality is if it's down to Labour members, potentially Ed Miliband could be our Prime Minister. And even I, who is a complete patriot, I'm going with we'll leave. I can't. I'm going to Australia. I can't. If that man... I mean, it's bad enough to have to get up every morning and assume that David Lammy has made it to the higher echelons of Deputy Prime Minister of my country. Ed Miliband, you're an Aussie. Tell me, please. We all go to Australia.
Get the tofu, bicycle and Birkenstocks out, JK, because that's going to be your life under a Miliband Prime Minister.
Birkenstocks? What are they?
Well, exactly.
They want vegetarians.
You'll have to find out quick and fast, because that's the type of sort of... what's funny is we joke about it, but I think he wants to bring us back into being a third world country with his net zero policies.
Well,
and that's the scariest part.
He will do.
It's going to be pre-industrial revolution type stuff. Genuinely, I don't know. Go to Australia. We've got energy, and we get into it and we drill. And now we don't have the same kind of. We got some issues.
Why did you leave? The climate, the approach. What are you doing here? You ridiculous person.
I came here with my Thatcher outfit to make. To make Britain great again and to imbue my wisdom on the country, JK.
Brilliant. Just finally, Jay, great to have you on, my friend. In a potted version, I'm amazed that everybody's amazed that Keir Starmer is trying to forge closer union with the EU. We always knew that. Anybody with a brain cell knew that he wants back into Europe. It's a reality now, isn't it?
Well, this is the guy who kept campaigning for a second referendum, and he stuck around the noted anti-Semite Jeremy Corbyn just so he could try and make that happen as his shadow Brexit secretary. Let's never forget that. Of course, he also tried to make that anti-Semite Jeremy Corbyn Prime Minister several times, but let's let that one go. It's just the same as Ed Miliband. The country rejected Ed Miliband as a candidate for being Prime Minister back in 2015. The country voted to leave, but the commies don't like this stuff. They don't like democracy anyway, and therefore they'll try and undo this stuff. But let's just think, what does Britain need to thrive? It needs a lot of energy, as Samara just talked about, drilling. We need a lot of economic growth. We need a lot of military defence. And America has all of that, and Europe has none of that. So it's not going to solve the fundamental issues, even if you thought it was a nice idea otherwise. It's completely ludicrous. And goodness me, what more could Nigel Farage ask for in Holy Week than the gift of Starmer admitting he wants to rejoin the European Union?
I don't know many wordsmiths who have an nth of your ability. How good is he?
I know. They don't make them like him.
They don't make them like... Look, she's off again. They don't make them like James. Yes, all right, Maggie.
I will not disrespect
Happy
that woman.
Easter, dear boy. Lots of eggs coming your way?
I hope so. I'm just waiting to see it. I still haven't heard Samara do her Thatcher impression.
I'm not going to do that in front of a believer like James.
Just say, I'm not... You might turn. I'm not for turning.
You might turn. I'm not for turning.
That was Prince Philip. That was Prince Philip.
Samara sounds like she needs to go to the loo. Morning, Rob.
Morning, Jez. Seeing his comments this morning about rejoining the EU, people should take this really serious. He's sort of throwing little flyers out everywhere to see where he can get a little nip for some votes. He's prepared to give everything away to save himself for a few votes. They've proved that with the way that they went around with the Muslim vote. You saw desperation that they're prepared to sell this country down the road to try to keep some sort of power by giving people the vote who shouldn't have it. Anything. They're not bothered about the history of what it would do to the people of this country. Everybody should watch very carefully what he's just said there, because he's a nutcase and he's prepared to do anything to try to save himself. Good morning, everyone.
The UK on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Welcome back, my friends. 7:25. Thank you to Samara. Thank you to JP. We're live across the UK. This is Talk Breakfast. Good morning, Alarm Clock Brits. Great to have you involved. 0344 499 1000. Steve, good morning.
Top of the morning to you, Samara, and your co-host there. The Ayatollah Khamenei had always planned to put us back in the EU. Even a blind man could see that. He fabricated this row with President Trump to say, oh, look, we haven't got America as a partner now. We'd have to go back into the EU in the national interest. This was always his plan. Well, not his plan, he's too thick. This was always his boss, Tony Blair's plan. We had the wall pulled over our eyes, for God's sake. Have a good morning.
That is the line of the week, the Ayatollah Khamenei. The Ayatollah Khamenei. I love it. 0344 499 1000. Morning to Bill. Jez, teachers have gone on strike at my local high school because they can't control pupils. It's getting out of control and authorities don't give a damn. Great debate. Thank you, Bill. Morning to Cliff in Berkshire. If the link-ups are organised over social media, guys, there must be a trail to the set of organisers. Who sent the couple of posts? Arrest them. That would make sense, wouldn't it? Morning, Jez. These kids are running riots, says Nigel. Looking old enough to vote now. How worrying is that? Rory. Most of those young thugs will be having countless subsidised kids before they're 16, as did their parents. And what do you think they'll be taught? You're right, exactly the same thing. Morning, Alex. You have to wonder what TikTok and China controlling the algorithm. Do you seriously think they might create an algorithm that make things like this, see what we saw in Clapham, happen regularly? You know, people will go, oh, that's a little bit far-fetched, but you have to wonder what's going on. You know, Sadiq Khan, this is anonymous but brilliant. You know, Sadiq Khan has overnight said London's a safe city and basically people are spreading false propaganda to serve their own interests. This anonymous text says, so Sadiq Khan says London is safe. Does that mean that McSweeney's phone never got stolen? Don't start. I'll have to get Dan Hodges back again. 9:28. I want to talk with an incredible man next. This is a man who was the former head of the British Army. I want to get an update on what he believes is happening in the Middle East. We see headlines. We see Trump standing up and saying, I'm pulling out, I'm obliterating, they're going back to the Stone Age. What are the facts? Lord Richard Dannat, former head of the British Army. A very good morning, sir. How are you?
Good morning, Jeremy. I'm very well, thank you. Good to join you.
And you. I think one of the stories that's come out overnight, and if we can just sort of separate a little bit of Donald Trump, who many think has been, you know, played like a good one here, has made a huge mistake and is now trying to get himself out of a situation that he could never have won, and is saying to allies, you sort out the Straits of Hormuz, I'm not interested. One of the topics overnight, Richard, is NATO, which he didn't mention in his speech last night, but many people think that he, as a result of what he perceives to be lack of support from the Allies, will take revenge. And certainly when he came to power before, he talked about how much America paid into NATO and how little they did, and that made a difference. What do you think will actually be the outcome? Do you think he'll be good to his word, or is this just more rhetoric?
Well, I'd like to think it's just more rhetoric. In one way, he's right. I think most people would agree that European countries have not paid enough for our own collective security over the years, and certainly not since the end of the Cold War. So to that extent, and just to that extent only, Donald Trump has got a point that we European countries have got to spend more on our own defence. Now, is he going to make good on his threat to leave NATO? I don't think so, and I certainly hope that he doesn't. NATO needs North America, NATO needs the United States, and it needs Canada as part of our collective defensive arrangements. I think what is sad, and this is where Trump is wrong, he is criticizing NATO members for not joining his war in Iran. Well, that's quite rich, actually. He didn't consult us or consult other countries beforehand. He just kicked off with the Israelis and expected us to join in. And the essential point about NATO is that it's a defensive alliance to protect NATO, to protect member states from hostile attack, from attack, for example, by Russia. It's not an alliance that America, yes, it leads, but it's not an alliance that America can just crack the whip and say, hey, we're going to go to war, you've all got to join in because you're all part of NATO. Wrong. We're part of NATO because we're in a defensive alliance to protect European security and North American security.
I get that, and I'm not actually in this instance. It's not that I've changed my opinion. I believe there's a lot that's good about Trump. I think the rantings show a man who probably realised he's made a mistake. But it's quite an interesting debate about NATO because, as you just said, Richard, when he came to power, he said, I am not I am not going to spend 10 times what the rest of you spend from my budget in America to protect Europe. But he has done that. He has paid that. And although they've moved the dial a little bit, the fact of the matter is he has, and America have paid more. My question would be this. Maybe we need to step back from it being madness. Maybe they have not a divine right. Maybe they have a moral right to say, hold on a minute, we spent all that money defending you for so long, which you all freely admitted, and we expected at the very least you, Keir Starmer, to say you can have our bases, and you said no. The man looks like he's sulking, and maybe he's like that, but you do sort of think, OK, we probably need America. The question for you, Britain needs America militarily far more than America needs Britain, doesn't it?
Yes, you're right, but America does need allies. I mean, I think to come back to your main point, Donald Trump is right that America has been paying over the odds for the collective security of Europe. And European countries, and some of them are getting on with it now, the Germans and the Poles are increasing their defence budget enormously. The Baltic countries, because they're very close to the threat of Russia, they're increasing their defence budget. And are we? No, we're not. Our politicians are talking about it, but they're not doing it. And that is an issue that's got to be addressed, and addressed pretty quickly. The government's got to publish its defence investment plan very soon and show how we're going to get to 3% of GDP to be spent on defence by 2029 and 3.5% by the next parliament.
But I mean, I think that's the point. Maybe that gives Donald Trump not the right, but the leg room to say, hold on a minute, I've spent all this money and only now are you coming round to either the belief or the action that you need to step up to the plate. I have a right to expect you to dance to my tune because I've been protecting you lot for years. That's the other side of the argument, isn't it?
It's the other side of the argument, and actually he's correct as far as that is concerned. But you can't carry it quite as far as one might like to carry it by saying just because the United States has been paying over the odds for NATO, that therefore NATO members should dance to his tune and join in this war. Now, I think.
Do you think NATO's fit for purpose? Genuine question.
Yes, I do actually. There's a structure of NATO, the leadership of NATO, the concepts behind NATO are good. Where NATO is not fit for purpose, it's the same discussion, is that not enough member states are paying a sufficient amount of their national wealth towards their defence budgets to make sure that their contributions to NATO's overall capability is good enough. And we are in the naughty corner as far as that is concerned. We, the UK, our contribution to NATO looks great on paper, but we haven't rounded it out with the cash to provide the hard fighting power that we should be doing so. But just to come back to, I think, the other point, at the start of this war, Keir Starmer was wrong, and he missed the big picture when the United States said, can we use the American bases that you provide for us on British soil? Keir Starmer said no, and he was missing the big picture. That he might be narrowly right, looking through his legal lens, that this war hadn't had United Nations Security Council backing. So he said, no, you can't use the bases. But he was overlooking the fact that America needed us at that moment, and he hesitated. Now, he's changed his mind subsequently. Well, he always does, doesn't he?
Yeah.
But he was wrong in that instance and actually overlooked the big picture that America had a problem. We were part of the solution to that, to use the bases that we provide. And we initially got it wrong by saying, no, you can't use them.
This is the reason for my question about NATO is, and again, I'm trying to look at all angles. I, like many others, find some of what Trump and the inconsistency annoying, but I do believe with this NATO thing it's relevant. For example, Richard, you know this, we are told the whole time, not by Donald Trump, by military chiefs, by politicians, by all sorts of people, that Iran is a risk to the West. Now, if the very organisation NATO that you says has what it needs and is important, why the hell doesn't NATO act? Why does it have to be Donald Trump? If they're there to defend us, why doesn't this collaboration of all of these countries that expect America to pay for them, why don't they take the lead?
Well, you make a very good point, and I think there's a lot of logic in what you're saying. I think I would just point out one other thing, is that had Donald Trump wanted NATO members to join, rather like the First and the Second Gulf War, when the Americans took the lead and they built a coalition of states that were willing to take part before the action started, then there may have been more cooperation from other countries. Now, we were blindsided. Actually, and I would go so far as to say Donald Trump was blindsided. Mossad, the Israeli intelligence service, saw on that Saturday 4 or 5 weeks ago that the Supreme Leader and his chief cohort of advisors were in one place at one time and struck. And that kicked off the war, which Donald Trump had always wanted. That's absolutely true. But his failure was actually not to bring others on side early on to join that coalition.
But then you see, I feel like I'm arguing from Donald Trump's point of view, and I'm not being pedantic, but then you can also argue, why the hell would you hang around and wait for people like Keir Starmer, who was always going to dither and dally, when you want to do something instantly? In terms of NATO, final question for you, which as the head of the ex-head of the British Army, you're always very honest to me about, and I appreciate it. Isn't NATO a smokescreen for the United Kingdom? I mean, if we had to fight a war on our own right now, we couldn't, could we?
Oh, if we had to fight a war on our own, no, we couldn't. I mean, we could engage in a limited action somewhere, but a major conflict on our own, no, we couldn't. And I think actually we've always said that, and I don't think many of the other countries, exception of the United States, could do that to fight a major war on their own. NATO is an extraordinarily important component of UK security, and by extension European collective security, and that's perfectly legitimate. But where we are failing is that we are not making our proper contribution to NATO's overall capability, both at sea, under the sea, on land and in the air. We are not pulling our weight. Some countries are beginning to, as I said, Poland and Germany now are, but and some of the Baltic states, but many other countries, including our own, are not paying our way, pulling our proper weight within NATO, and that's got to change, and it's got to change quickly.
Lord Richard Dannett, thank you so much indeed. Former head of the British Army, it was great to have you on the show and oversight there of what's going on in NATO, in Donald Trump's mind and in the Middle East. 22 minutes to 8 o'clock. This is Talk Breakfast.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Welcome back, 20 minutes to 8 o'clock. The conversations backstage, as I call them, are extraordinary. 0344 419 1000. Thank you for tuning in this morning. It's the home of common sense. It's the home of free speech. We're talking about Sadiq Khan, who says there's no problems. Those Clapham riots were made up. It's AI fakes. London's the safest city in the land. This is rumour mongering and false propaganda spread by the right for their own interests. Yeah, absolutely. Starmer, I do want to leave get closer to the EU and ignore the wishes of the the people in a referendum. Morning, Sean.
Morning, Jeremy. Sean from Grimsby here. With the Prime Minister now trying to rejoin the EU, this is the death throes of a man who knows he's done, who knows he's loathed. He must know that the vast majority of the country hate him and can't stand this fella. So he's not acting in everyone's best interest. He's acting in his own interests and his party's interests, and that makes him a very, very dangerous man. He'll put himself and his party above anybody else. He doesn't care who it hurts. He doesn't care how skint we are. All he cares about is the Labour Party and Keir effing Starmer. Great show, mate.
Great. Well, I'm not going to condone that, but we did have earlier the greatest line ever. The liar-toller Starmini. Brilliant. Adi goes further. Morning, Jez. Where's Samara gone? I don't know. To make the break. I'm joking. You know, I've never hated a person as much as I hate Starmer with what his absolute gutless wet wipe is doing to our great country. When is he going to realise and start listening to what the British people actually want rather than dictating to us? The poor excuse of a man is a total embarrassment, and I want him out and I want him gone. Much love for Keir Starmer this morning. We're going to a good friend of the show. Delighted to have him on. I just want to talk to him about Sadiq Khan and Clapham, actually. Norman Bremen, former policeman. How are you, son?
Not bad, Jeremy. How are you? All right?
Yeah, I always think you look like a proper copper, Norm. Can you do me a favour? You know those AI fake images of Clapham where kids weren't running amok and looting shops and stealing cars and behaving disgracefully? Because that's what Sadiq Khan says. He says this is just conspiracy and propaganda spread by people for their own narrative. He's mad. This that we see on screen, this that we hear about, I fear, as a parent, as a citizen, is going to become more and more prevalent. Norman, how do we stop this? Because this is wrong on every level.
No, I mean, to tell you the truth, we can't. And the reason why we can't, we don't have the police service that we once had. We don't have robust policing. I've got to tell you, and it's all right, us dinosaurs telling today's cops what they should be doing. Because don't forget, we all walked in their shoes, but we would have flooded that area. And if anybody had committed any crimes, we would have nicked as many as need be, because we also knew that we'd have dozens, if not hundreds, of other officers backing us up. Today, you're barely likely to see one police car turn up. As you saw the other day, hundreds of these young school kids, 13, 14, 15, 16 years of age, running amok. Fortunately, they didn't do mass theft. Fortunately, they didn't do mass robbery. But unless this is nipped in the bud, that's exactly what's coming. And when we talk about... Sorry, Jeremy, carry on.
Is London lawless, then, in your mind?
Oh, absolutely. Don't forget, Jeremy, I've been in policing and law and order for 50 years. I was the first police officer in history to break from the ranks whilst a serving officer and go to the media and warn them of what was coming. I wanted society to wake up to what we as frontline police officers saw as the criminal justice system being in a complete and utter mess. I predicted the knife crime epidemic 30 years ago. Here we are, we have the epidemic. We have shoplifting epidemic. We had 112,000 mobile phones stolen. 88,000 were in London. Mayfair the other day, they are all being targeted, a lot of the residents that live there. Street robbery is an everyday occurrence. Burglars, 92% don't even get anybody turn up. 1% out of 100%, any phone robbers are actually prosecuted. So when I say the streets are lawless, Jeremy, I don't just say it because I've got nothing better to do. I'm an expert in the subject. We don't have the police service.
But I would see this is for me, Norman, and I'm so grateful for you coming on this morning. This is the issue, right? When people criticise this government and people say, "Oh, come on, we haven't got enough police," I just want to take us back to Southport. I was sat doing the show. What happened on the streets of... I don't want to get into a debate as to whether the government should have given the guy's identity out and it spread on social media. But what was extraordinary after the riots in Southport, and there were some far-right thugs, but the fact was, right, Starmer labelled every single person far-right. The place was, in your words, flooded with police. The courts were opened live on television on Sky. I remember everybody was carted to jail, carted to court, and oh behold, there were places available in prison. They were thrown in jail. He labelled everybody far right. Why the hell wasn't Clapham flooded with police officers? Where did he get them from Southport? If they know about this stuff, you know, the police tell me all the time, we spend our time policing social media. What? For somebody who writes something untoward or wrong, and I'm not condoning, but I'll give you Lucy Collin, I'm condoning what she wrote. Why are those people who are policing, right, social media, not policing this and getting ahead of the game and going, this is going down in Clapham, I'm going to put 500 coppers there, I'm going to smack a couple around the head, sorry, I'm being honest, and I'm going to teach these people that this isn't acceptable. But you can't do that, can you? Because that will be against their rights and they're all sat behind a desk. But that wasn't the case in Southport, Norman. They were everywhere because it suited Starmer politically. I genuinely believe that.
Southport was different, Jeremy. That was mutual aid. And I can tell you now that was not sustainable. The Met Police do not have the numbers. The whole country do not have the numbers of police. And I can tell you now, if we have another controversial shooting like Mark Duggan or a controversial stop and search, we have tinderboxes all over London just waiting to crack off. We do not have the police officers that we need. We are 20,000 police officers short from the population growth of 2009. And I'm dealing with police officers that were strong, outstanding, and I speak to them like you probably do at times, but the public don't see, that are broken. Yeah. Somebody the other day, a BTP officer, in a private WhatsApp net, called someone a pikey. He was sacked. Yesterday, I saw another officer that I know about committed suicide. He made one derogatory comment. The point I'm getting at is the police are scared witless to do the job that the public want. Stop and search a young black suspect, and the other day they had a choice to stop and search up to 400. To go and deal with those properly, you cannot do mass arrest, because if you do mass arrest, the officers that attended will all be at police stations doing interviews, asking for parents to come. I cannot say it loud enough and clear enough. Britain is lawless. There are areas of London that are no-go areas. Croydon, Thornton Heath, Stoke Newington, Hounslow, Brixton, Harleston, Kilburn, Wilson. I know all these areas. I used to bloody police them. And I'm sick and tired of this country living in fear. We need leaders with vision, direction, passion and ability. We do not have the police service that the public need, and I despair for the future. We are not robust enough. We are not going to be robust enough. And what does the government do about knife crime that's an epidemic? He decriminalises it for those under the age of 18 and who are bloody killing people, stabbing people, carrying knives. It's the 4,000 gangs in Britain, 200 in London, that are carrying these bloody knives. I could swear all day long. I've been saying the same thing, Jeremy, for 15 years as a serving police officer. If they never listened and acted when I went to number 10 Downing Street with homicide families, when I wrote to every MP warning them that crime and disorder will get out of control unless we act, I don't know who else this government or anyone will actually listen to. We are lawless in London. Khan is wrong. And only the other day, I listed all the stabbings this year, all the murders this year, all of the mortuaries that are filling with children and young people, people carrying knives and guns. There's no police officer on the street. A victim doesn't see a police officer when they're burgled, have their car stolen, their bike stolen. We turned up to every single call when I was a police officer. We didn't always get the result, but the public liked us and respected us because we turned up, we listened and did our best for them. I'm afraid I can't say the same today, Jeremy.
Norman, I don't need to add anything to that. Absolutely fantastic, and I completely and utterly agree, mate. It's always an absolute pleasure. I do wish people in authority would listen, but your passion says it all. Norman Bremen, former police officer, thank you very much indeed. Talk breakfast, what is it, 10 to 8?
Some breaking news this morning revealed that under the Terrorist Act, 242 people were arrested in the year to June of this year.
That's something you can indulge in as to all the...
Across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Welcome back, 7 minutes to 8. Delighted to be joined by my next guest, former Press Secretary to Her Majesty the Queen, the legend that is Dickie Arbiter. Morning, Dickie.
Morning, Jeremy. Where's the fanfare?
Well, what do you mean, where's the fanfare? Is that... That's all I've got. It's cheap, Dickie. Everything's changed, man. We don't have the money anymore. What's happening?
So you tell me what's happening.
Interesting picture in the Mail today, page 11, I think it is. Lost in thought, ashen-faced Andrew's car outing. As CPS give police advice over investigation. Prosecutors, Dickie, are working with the police, probing Andrew Mountbatten, Windsor and Mandelson's links to Epstein. Is that usual? It sounds pretty unusual to me.
It sounds unusual because we've never heard about it, but the CPS do have a special criminal unit which is there for advice. And it's obvious that the Met Police and Thames Valley Police both are investigating both Mandelson and Andrew Mountbatten Windsor, and the police forces have asked for advice. As we know, they have messed up so many times. So many cases have been thrown out by the CPS through lack of investigation or lack of procedure. And I think both the Met and Thames Valley want to get this absolutely right, having sort of stormed in with very high-profile arrests of Andrew Mountbatten Windsor firstly, and then Peter Mandelson.
Do you believe that charges, let's talk Andrew Mountbatten Windsor, do you believe that charges are going to happen against him, yes or no?
I can't say yes and I can't say no, and I'm not sitting on the fence. Misconduct in public duty is very, very difficult to prove, and it could take ages. There was a report a few weeks ago that they're looking into the whole question of corruption. Whether that is something that will stand up, I really don't know. I'm not in on the investigation. The police have got a very difficult job to do, whether it's the Met or Thames Valley, and they're going to have to make up their minds which direction they're going, and that's why I think they've gone to the CPS.
I said this the other day and people looked at me like I'm mad, and I'm hoping that you won't. There's no court case that can survive for Andrew Mountbatten Windsor. He's got an absolute out, which anybody with a brain cell knows. Paul Burrell used it. All he has to do in a court that's run by the monarch is simply say, if he ever had to, via video link or on the stand, when the charges are read out, I told my brother or I told my mother, and like Burrell, everything will drop down. We're talking about a man, are we not, who is morally corrupt.
I think we've moved on considerably since the early noughties, and I don't believe the whole business of Burrell having told the monarch and the monarch suddenly remembering. I think this was all a way of stopping the King, then Prince of Wales, being summoned to the court to give evidence. We've moved on since then. It has been a very high-profile arrest. There is more just than misconduct in public duty. Whether the police can make corruption stick, I really don't know. But there's a whole the question of his association with Jeffrey Epstein and alleged sex trafficking. It's not going to go away. No. And if it gets to court, when it gets to court, whether we'll both still be alive by then remains to be seen.
Sorry. If we're both still alive, Arbiter, what are you saying?
Well, you're not exactly a spring chicken, are you?
I am compared to you, my old son, that's for sure. That's interesting. You see, I actually disagree with you, Dickie. I actually think that irrespective of whether you've moved on or not, because the King or the reigning monarch rules the court, you can't call them. And here's my question about the King, who I'm a royalist, but I think that there are problems afoot. If he is prosecuted, right, and a lot of people who listen and watch these sorts of stations ask this, the King's on dodgy ground. I know he's in a difficult position, but right now I have hundreds of people saying to me, if this charlatan, if this morally corrupt man who had close links to Epstein and seems to have feathered his own nest for years does get prosecuted, surely the King, who's funding his lifestyle, who he's only got a chef and a valet and a mobile caravan, he'll be implicated. I know that I know the King's hands are tied, but right now he's funding for somebody who's deeply, deeply in trouble, and it comes back on the King.
Yeah, well, he's probably funding. I think lifestyle is a bit rich. There's not much of a lifestyle stuck at Sandringham.
Well, tell Dickie, tell that to people who get up at 6 a.m. to work and pay taxes. They think living in a 5-bedroom house on Sandringham's quite good.
Yeah, I agree with you, but you use the word lifestyle, and I'm having a go at that because he hasn't got a lifestyle.
No.
But in terms of the King knowing what happened, I doubt he did. Andrew played everything very close to the chest. He didn't tell anybody anything. He wouldn't even tell his own staff unless there was a need to know. And most of the time, there wasn't a need to know.
But how did he? This is again, you know me, I'm probably more royal than you, right? Royalist as a royalist. But what did his brother and his late mother think when he pitched up and went, "Can I have 12 million quid, please?" I mean, what are there people who can ask? I mean, they would have asked questions, or are you saying no, that he'd have pulled the wool over their eyes?
Well, they would have asked questions, and 12 million quid is a bit rich. I mean, it's a figure that's as a myth has become a fact. If it was any millions, it was probably nearer 2 or 3 million. But yeah, question would have been asked. He would have fudged the issue. It's a very difficult one. We weren't there. I'm not in a position to say, and I wasn't a fly on the wall, what was said and what wasn't said. But it does raise questions. Why was money given, irrespective of how much it was, and what questions were asked at the time?
Do you think that, just for all my listeners always ask, do you think the King has cut ties? Do you think he still speaks to him behind the scenes? Any idea of what the relationship is today, Dickie?
I think the relationship is very frosty. It would be frosty given that the King has stripped him of everything. Everything that he held dear, his position, his home, his titles, all his military associations. He stripped him bare. I mean, all he's got are the clothes he stands up in and his birth names. He's got nothing else.
Final very quick question, and bless you for coming on, are they on speaking terms, yes or no?
Probably.
Yeah. Dickie, love you, man. Although much older than me, so never make that joke again. We'll have you on very soon. Thank you so much indeed. The legend that is Dickie Arbiter. What is it? Almost 8 o'clock. 0344 499 1000 is the number. Sarah Vine next after the news on Talk.
The journey of me following the migrants went from sort of 10 in the morning all around the clock to late at night, to the point where on buses, on trains, through streets, at every key point, French military police and the French police, they were there. They were on the bus taking down notes, taking pictures, but not doing anything to deter the migrants or stop them, just being there. I was sat in the tent and he was showing me through photos of his phone, scrolling through. This was barbaric, horrific stuff. Blokes going through walls in vehicles and then jumping out and shooting everyone. His WhatsApp picture was him with a mask on, with a gun like that.
You're in a tent with this guy?
I'm in a tent with this guy, and actually he's just showing me this stuff. I'm just thinking, this is not the kind of bloke you want to be coming to the UK.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Welcome back, or welcome along. Talk Breakfast is on until 10. Excuse me, the home of common sense and the home of the alarm clock. Brit, what are you waking up to on Thursday, the 2nd of April? Well, what are you waking up to? Trump, you heard in the news there, addressed the nation and said, I'm going to bomb them to the Stone Ages, but I'm going to leave in 3 weeks. You can sort out the Straits of Hormuz on your own. I'm done. The American people, bless them, his approval rating went up 5 points when he said that he's leaving Iran. Many people think he's made catastrophic mistakes. Die-hard Trumpites saying, no, it's all a plan. He's got the oil in Venezuela. He's done what he needs. But there is proof, is there not, that when America does what America sometimes does, think Vietnam, think Afghanistan, the out is always difficult. At home, our Prime Minister makes no secret. Good name for him, by the way, this morning. Can't remember who it was. The Ayatollah Khamenei. I love it. I love it. It's fantastic. He wants closer links with the EU, despite the fact we had a referendum saying we shouldn't have done that. Also, his deputy, his Chancellor, Rachel Reeves. So I don't know whether she's had a brain transformation in the last 24 hours. She suddenly decided that we should drill in the North Sea. In a rift with Ed Miliband, she says that's the way to financial security. It's like she's suddenly been on a course to work out how you balance the books. She didn't do that because she didn't work. Also, the big news story of the day, London, right? You'll have seen the footage of those mobs in Clapham, couple of nights running, 300 kids just running amok, storming buildings, cars. There it is. It's a fact. Oh, no, says Sadiq Khan. He says, and I quote, London's the safest city on the planet. People are spreading false propaganda because it serves their interest. I'm long past wondering whether he actually knows what he's talking about. Let's hear it from somebody who lives in Clapham. Morning, Danny.
Good morning, Jezza and Samara. Great show as usual. Danny from Bedfordshire here. Regarding the Clapham incident, the problem we've got kids having kids. Young girls getting pregnant at 16, 17, 18, and then when their kids get to 16, 15, 14, they become their best mates. And there's no parental responsibility, there's no fear of what your mum and dad will say, because most 90% of the time, the dads aren't about. So it's mums raising friends. That's a problem. There's no consequences. And the best thing is, we pay for it all. Yeah, great. Have a great day, guys.
Keith Alderson adds to that. Jez, so where were the community leaders in Clapham? Most of those rampaging young people in Clapham won't have parents. The father is usually absent or unknown. Keith in Oxford Street. I've got a really, really strong feeling about this, which I'm going to put to my next guest. This is the highlight of my week. Everybody knows that. I'm like a starstruck fan. Sarah Vine, good morning.
Good morning, sir. How are you?
I'm all right. I'm not allowed to use a certain word, but where are your cats this morning? Any news?
They've gone a prowling. I was up very early this morning, so they've had, they've been doing their cat stuff.
What's the favourite named one I love? What's she called?
Well, there's Cersei.
Cersei. Nobody has a cat called Cersei except for Sarah Vine.
I mean, but it's a Game of Thrones reference. Cersei in Game of Cersei Lannister.
It's still brilliant. London, Sadiq Khan, this has gone through the roof. You will know, you live in London, those scenes in Clapham. Sadiq Khan's response is people are spreading false narrative. And a couple of people, he heard a voice note there from somebody who talked about absent parents. I said an hour ago, Sarah, and I'm really strong on this and I won't change my mind. I know people talk about there aren't community centres and poor youths have no jobs to go to and the schools should do more and blah, blah, blah. I think the breakdown of the family unit in many instances, and I'm very strong on this, right? Yes, my marriage is 2 marriages broke down, but this is what I say. I don't agree with people who say, oh, the dad's not there. There are plenty of women, amazing single mothers who have brought up kids. I know men, grown men, who are more scared of their mother than anybody because their mother instilled in them. And I think it's a cop-out to say if a mother's on her own with kids that they're going to necessarily end up on the streets. I think that parents as couples and I think parents as single parents need to do more. I'm not saying that all parents don't do more before people jump up and down, but it starts at home. And the breakdown of what I see as there are the rules, there are the boundaries, and there are the bloody consequences are part of this. Right. Because my kid would not be on Clapham High Street with a knife. I'm just being honest, Sarah.
No. Well, there are two things. I thought what Norman Brennan said earlier was very interesting. He's very good on this stuff, which is that they just isn't the policing capacity anymore. So young people are not scared of the police in the way that, you or I were, because they know that they can just get away with it. And if you decriminalise everything for under 18s, I mean, these kids that you can see in these videos, most of them are all under 18. They're all sort of 15 or 16. So they know that there's not going to be any serious repercussion for them, even if they are arrested, which is obviously not happening. And I think on the parent front, I think there is your other voice note was very good, because this idea that parents are somehow their children's friends lines is a kind of modern idea. It's absolute rubbish. You have to have red lines with children. They are crafty as anything. They will, they'll do everything they can to get away with stuff. And if you try and make your child like you, you're in a hiding to nothing. So you absolutely can't do that. You have to be disciplinarian. You're not your child's friend. Even my children, who are 22 and 21, I'm not their friend. I'm their mother, and they know that. And there's a line that isn't crossed. And I think that this stuff is a combination of factors, and it's never one thing. It's the fact that the gangs are completely out of control in London, and anyone who tells you that they're not is lying. I don't understand how the mayor of London can say that this is all just conspiracy. What he should be saying is, I've seen this stuff. It's really terrible. I'm having an emergency meeting today to decide what to do about it. That's what a sensible mayor does, not going off on some sort of stupid kind of identity politics. Wow, it's all the right wing. It's not the right wing. These kids are doing what they're doing. You can see it. I mean, I live in Shepherd's Bush. You get this kind of stuff a lot. It's not unusual. They get together, they're bored, they go and do this stuff. And that's what they do, because they know no one is going to tell them off. No one.
I mean, that's, for me, that's it. Consequences. If there are no consequences to your action for what we would call, of our generation, antisocial behaviour. And then we have the debate about, somebody was saying, well, this is high tech, this is social media, which I agree. But if we've got police in this country, Sarah, who will, basically trawl through people's social media sites in case they find something in any way derogatory. And I use the example, not that I condone what she said at all, but Lucy Connolly, that tweet, 1 hour, 31 months in jail. Well, why aren't those very police who aren't on the streets and are going through social media finding out where these places start and going to those people?
I agree. But on the tweet stuff, you can say something derogatory about the wrong person and you get into trouble. But if you say something derogatory about you or me, that's absolutely fine. Yeah. I get called to see you next Tuesday on Twitter every day of the week, but no one cares because it's me. It's this whole sort of identity politics obsession that some people are just inherently worse than others because they're whatever, older, privileged, the wrong colour, whatever, the wrong religion. It's just absurd. And, Sadiq Khan's job is to police London and all of London and to look after everyone who lives in London. And he's just not doing that. And on the social media thing, we had these riots. Do you remember these riots in 2011 that we had?
Yes.
Those riots, which were really scary, actually. And I was right in the middle of them as well. I don't know what I seem to always be in trouble. But they didn't have social media really then. They were just using Blackberries. So they'll always find a way. It's not, you can't just blame the technology.
But we're soft, aren't we? We're soft. And whether it's parents or whether it's police, and I made the point to Norman Brennan, which you heard already, which is he found thousands of police did Starmer when those Southport riots happened, and he could label everybody far right. I'm going to ask a really contentious question that somebody sent in to me. And it simply said, do you think that Sadiq Khan would have had the same laissez-faire attitude if the majority of kids that you saw on that screen were white, not black?
Of course not. Obviously not. I mean, obviously not.
Yeah. I mean,
it's all right. And it's not. I don't think that's a controversial thing to say.
Well, it's just
truthful,
reality. Isn't it?
Well, isn't it? It's just the reality of the way we live now.
How does it change, though, Sir? On a serious note, for people of our generation, and I'm much older than you, but where do we get back to, or how do we get back to respect, decency, family values, community spirit? How do we get that back? Because that's gone.
You start by stopping. You don't give people a free pass because of their identity. You don't say we're going to go after some people and not after others because some people are better than others. You don't make that value judgment. You look at their actions and you say, are these actions right or wrong? Are they legal or illegal? And you proceed on that basis. But what we've got so mired in is this whole kind of identity, whose side are you on, whose camp are you in? And it's very divisive. And it just gets more and more divisive because people feel resentful, they feel left out, they feel left behind. And a lot of your callers express this very eloquently. They just think this country just thinks I'm all they don't care about me. They just think I'm here just to pay some taxes so that some more people can have some more free houses. And that's how people feel. And the thing is, you can't police people's feelings. You have to accept what they are, and you have to work with what you've got. And so what you need is good, solid politicians who work from first principles and who have moral standards and who have red lines, rather like parents. Actually, you need politicians who are not trying to be everybody's friend or to be popular or to be loved or whatever, or to everyone to give them prizes for being so sweet and nice. You want politicians who can make tough decisions and who are able to not be to be parental in their approach. That's what you need. You need strict red lines, and we don't have them. And
do you think that this God, it sounds quite deep, but are there politicians today that have that courage, that conviction?
I think there are, and I've always said, I know you disagree with me, but I think Kemi Badenoch has it. I think she's trying very hard. There are people. I don't
disagree with you. I think she's the right leader at the wrong time. I think she's good, but I think it's the wrong time. I don't think the British people will forgive them yet.
Where there are politicians who are trying to do this, but the trouble is, it's very difficult because we've now got into this sort of set mode where politicians just are so short-termist. It's all just about what they can get quickly. Their quick ratings, their quick sort of bounce. So it's very difficult to do good, solid, long-term. But that's the problem. As Norman has always said, everything, all the sort of institutions, all these things have been undermined over time, and now there's just a veneer, and everything underneath is nothing.
Couldn't agree more. Did you, like me, wake up this morning and nearly fall off your kitchen chair? Rachel Reeves has decided to come out overnight and back drilling in the North Sea, creating a huge rift with the madman that is Ed Miliband. Has she finally done a degree in economics or something, or worked out that makes sense? What's going on?
I know there's been an outbreak of common sense. Well, I think she's just, I don't know, I'm ambivalent about Rachel Reeves. I think she has the worst job in politics, and I think she's very unsupported by her absolute coward of a leader who has no backbone and no spine and just blames everything else when things go wrong. But I think she's obviously decided that it makes sense to do that. I mean, we should also be fracking, by the way. Yeah. There's masses of gas that we have sitting under the Gainsborough Trough that we could get out quite relatively easily. We should be as energy sufficient, self-sufficient as we possibly could. I mean, I thought that lesson came out of COVID, and it always astonished me that we've sort of just gone the other way, because it was obvious during COVID that Britain was far too reliant on other countries for all sorts of things, and that actually we needed to be much more self-sufficient. And no one has taken any real measures to implement that. And in fact, Ed Miliband has gone completely the other way because he's got his mad sort of pet project. But I hope that maybe there can be a consensus, and that at least we can do it as an emergency measure, if not a permanent one.
Completely. The other big news of the day, this is so shocking, you'll probably again fall off your chair. Keir Starmer has admitted that he wants closer ties with the EU and that's the future, and, on the back of Coalition of the Willing, the worst name of any organisation in the world. He makes no secret. Now, of course, the Leavers are all jumping up and down going, but we voted. Other people are saying, yes, but if we voted now, it would be different. It's quite scary if you look at what he's doing and what he's done, that the British people gave him such a free pass 18 months ago, and says, I'm afraid, an awful lot about how low the Tories had ended up in people's minds, don't you think?
Yes, I completely agree. I mean, I think the thing is that the Remain camp have never conceded victory. We're almost 10 years on from the referendum, and as far as they're concerned, it was all just a terrible mistake. And people just were wrong, and they've spent the last decade trying to reverse it. I think a lot of people, I'll be honest with you, I know a lot of people who voted for Starmer on the basis that they thought he might take us back into the EU. I mean, it's no secret that that's what he wants to do. That's what he thinks we should do.
But it's just such a difficult one, isn't it? We spend all this time going round in circles. I mean, it's a bit like, the argument over the Iran war, the argument over the EU. The things that matter to alarm clock Brits are what we saw in Clapham, what we see when people queue up in supermarkets, the cost of energy, all those things. Just one final thing this week. I'm bored of talking about the specifics of Scott Mills, but yesterday what took off was the BBC, who seem incapable of vetting presenters, seem to have no consistency. The Director General, who's leaving today, actually, Tim Davie, that was his last action. I don't want to make it about Scott Mills. I want to make it about an organisation that, I mean, it's my strongest thing. I don't believe that I think they're the most biased coverage in the world, not because they're to the left, but because I think they should be straight down the middle. I've always thought that. They are patently not. They still refuse to call Hamas a terrorist organisation. They seem to back all sorts of things. But the audacity of sending, I don't know if you saw this story yesterday, 46 million letters across the last 12 months saying basically if you don't buy your new TV licence, which by the way is going up to 180 quid, we will prosecute you. Is it not, Sarah Vine, time to defund, deregulate and change the BBC and make it play on a level playing field? Because they always say to me, Strictly is great, Traitors is great, yeah, and I'll pay for that, but I'm not being forced to pay for something anymore that I don't want to watch. I want to be able to make choice, and they should be able to compete in the open market, shouldn't they?
Yeah, I mean, I think the license fee is a nonsense because apart from anything else, it's attached to the television, and who watches TV on the TV anymore? I mean, I watch mostly on a laptop, so it's a very old-fashioned and outdated concept. What you should have is a system whereby, you know, with like Netflix or whatever, you pay $5.99 a month if you want to watch the BBC's content, and then you have a login, and that's how you watch it. And it's not complicated. Most TVs now have smart apps and all of that. I mean, I actually don't even have a subscription with anything anymore. I just watch my apps. So if I'm watching something on the BBC, I log into iPlayer and I watch it like that. So I have a login. It's free because I have a license. You know, I pay the license fee obviously because I have to. But you know, you could easily just do it as a kind of choice rather than an obligation. And I agree. I mean, it's absurd that the BBC 46 million warning letters. What a waste of paper, time, money, admin, all of that.
And I would never condone. We wouldn't. You know, don't pay your license fee. But the thousands of people that contact us every single day saying, "I'm not doing it anymore." It's grossly unfair.
I cannot listen to the Radio 4 anymore, which is what I used to listen to, because I just find the coverage just so ridiculous and so biased. Programs like Woman's Hour, which used to be quite good, I mean, they're just absolute knit your own tampon nonsense these days. It's just the whole thing is just completely sort of woke and absurd. So, I mean, you know, I'm afraid they've sort of done it to themselves. You know, you've got to have if you're a national broadcaster, you have to have some diversity. You have to have all views not represented, not just the people you think, you know, are fashionable or whatever. And it doesn't do that at all, unfortunately.
Unfortunately, that you could say that with so much of the media, but the BBC and I actually, and I'm so with you. Whatever people that you said earlier about us, or whatever the people that have views like us, I'm really happy to sit in a room and listen to somebody and reply and speak to somebody whose views I would never countenance. But what I will to my dying day, and I am turning into my dad, what I will not accept is totally, you know, it centres on my 22-year-old daughter who is at university and is as woke as hell. That's her right. And I say, I love the fact that you are invested in having an opinion. But anything I say, anything I believe in, anything I've grown up with is not only trashed, I should be cancelled. Don't you dare come to Edinburgh. You mention the word reform, nobody will ever talk to me again, blah, blah, blah. And I always want to say to them, a bit like my dad used to say, but it's two-way, but they won't have it. And that's people like Khan and people like the BBC. It's their way or the highway, and people have had enough, Sarah, had enough.
They really have, and they're right to have enough, because actually you can have a debate with anyone. I do it all the time. It's perfectly possible to have a reasonable debate with somebody that you really disagree with and agree to disagree. You can air your views. And the thing is, but I think this is to do with moral cowardice. People would rather shut down conversation. So we have in my house, the argument we always have is Israel, you know, that whole thing. And, you know, I believe that the state of Israel has a right to exist. I think that's a perfectly reasonable view to take. It's my view. I'm not ashamed of it, but of course my children are. And so we have this sort of, and what they simply do is they just leave the room. They refuse to engage, especially if I start to win an argument there. And that's
I get the phone put down. Bye. Yeah.
Busy now.
I love you, Sarah Vine. Thank you so much. No sign of the cat this morning, desperately, but the line of the morning is knitting there. I'm not doing it. Sarah Vine, thank you so much indeed. See you next week. Have a great Easter. This is Talk Breakfast. Morning, Dan.
Morning, Jezzo. It's Dan from Kent. What this Iranian war has shown is how vulnerable we are when it comes to energy, and also how inadequate our military defence capabilities are. And the lack of support that Donald Trump's received from our government and Europe, I can actually see him pulling out of Ukraine with all support and saying, Europe, this is your problem now. So when King Charles goes over to the States, he best put his best pair of roll begging boots on, because we need to patch up our friendly relationship. Great show.
I was sat in the tent and he was showing me through photos of his phone, scrolling through. This was barbaric, horrific stuff. Blokes going through walls in vehicles and then jumping out and shooting everyone. His WhatsApp picture was him with a mask on, with a gun like that.
You're in a tent with this guy?
I'm in a tent with this guy, and actually he's just showing me this stuff. I'm just thinking, this is not the kind of bloke you want to be coming to the UK.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Welcome back, 8:27. Julia Hartley-Brewer here from 10 o'clock. Ian Collins from 1 and Kevin O'Sullivan on Drive. That's your line-up on Talk. You know, I said this yesterday, by the way. You know all this talk about you know, the BBC and everything and defunding it. I don't know why people are listening to BBC Radio anyway. I'm going to give you some choice, peeps. Good choice. If you want news and politics and your ability to put your views on the day's news, it's Talk. Every single day, isn't it, from 6 o'clock? If you want sport, you go to Talk Sport. You go to Big Alan Brazil. He's not in today, but he's supposed to be through. I mean, he's on holiday. I mean, he's through there. And if you wanted music, you go to the best DJ in the world, who's also not in today, Chris Evans, because he's on holiday, but he's on Virgin. So what's all this? Oh, let's listen to radio. I'm getting angry about the minute. 0344 499 1000. Morning, Jay.
Morning, Jez. A great show as always. Just a couple of points. The first one, Rachel Reeves coming out and saying, you know, about the North Sea oil, we need to drill, we've got our own money there. Wow. Really? She's only just thought to say this? I mean, none of the others are saying it, but, you know, if Labour are so convinced they're going to stay in power, why not put their green policy back 5 to 10 years, absolutely hammer the oil, beef up the military, the 28 billion or whatever it's overdue. Surely that would be the way to do it when you're in pocket, not in debt.
Maybe, but that might make sense. Let's say a very good morning. This is interesting. The Ayatollah Khamenei, I love that this morning, has decided that we should indeed get closer to the EU again. Next, the former Minister for Exiting the European Union, Steve Baker, good morning.
Good morning, Jeremy. Thank you for having me on.
The Ayatollah Khamenei, somebody sent this morning. How good's that, pal?
That is, I'm afraid, extremely funny, although it's not one I would have invented, but it is, I'm afraid, very, very funny, yes.
Steve, I just want to talk briefly, my friend, with you about Brexit. You were the Minister for Exiting. My personal opinion is we never managed to see through what was promised, and that was one of my criticisms in the end of Boris Johnson, actually. That and other things. It wasn't really Partygate for me. It was a letdown on Brexit, and also the fact that he moved to the centre in terms of net zero. But Keir Starmer makes no secret of his intention of maybe exploiting what's going on in the Middle East to get closer to Europe. As a man whose political career was based on the opposite, how does that make you feel?
Well, I'm very stoical. I mean, to be honest, the reason this is a mess is because the public and the opinion-forming establishment didn't want to leave the EU in too large numbers. I mean, obviously, we voted to leave the EU, but the establishment then resisted it tooth and nail. It's created a right mess. It made it extremely difficult to get out at all. It was incredibly difficult to try and deregulate. That's one of the reasons why gains haven't been realised. But what Keir Starmer's doing is basically giving us Brexit by name only. What he said yesterday is probably the most significant thing that's been said about foreign policy since Suez. He intends to subordinate the UK's national security, defence and foreign policy to the European Union. That's what it means to have ambitious cooperation. It always means subordination. It's a disastrous policy and exactly the sort of thing you would expect from him. He's already done it on various things like agriculture and energy. It's quite wrong, and I'm very confident that either Kemi or Nigel Farage would reverse it after the next election.
Let's just see what he said yesterday, Starmer, Steve, because as you say, the shackles are thrown off and the confidence maybe has come from the Middle East, but no secret. This is what he wants to do.
Our long-term national interest requires closer partnership with our allies in Europe and with the European Union. But as the Chancellor has rightly pointed out, Brexit did deep damage to our economy, and the opportunities to strengthen our security and cut the cost of living are simply too big to ignore. So, in the coming weeks, we will announce a new summit with our EU partners. We want to be more ambitious, closer economic cooperation.
Steve, anybody with a brain cell would know, because I do this, if somebody leaves my employ, tells me I'm rubbish, and then crawls back 5 years later saying, oh, I'm sorry, can I come to your birthday party and be your friend? I'm going to punish them. Does Starmer not understand, whilst he's pontificating about the cost of living, that because of the decision the British people made, whether that was right or wrong in the eyes of the establishment, we're going to be screwed again, aren't we?
We probably will be, yes. I mean, we saw what people did over Northern Ireland. There was talk about Northern Ireland being the cost of us leaving the EU. They obviously want to show to other European nations that there's a high price, you can't do it and so on. But look, in the end, the fundamental issue is this. There's a difference of opinion over what's in the UK's national interest. One of the huge problems of the European Union is their vast gap between what they think they'd like to achieve and what they're capable of doing. We've just had whispers of President Trump thinking of withdrawing from NATO. But does anyone seriously think that Europe can defend itself without the United States of America? And yet they'll posture and throw their weight around. And I'm sorry, folks, in an era of great power competition, that's an extremely dangerous thing to do, to be talking beyond your means to carry things through. Trump, of course, risks Russia being more aggressive were he to withdraw from NATO. So I'm very thankful that overnight he didn't. But this is big stuff. And the UK, having decided to leave, should get on and do it properly. That means being an independent, self-governing nation, which takes serious strategic decisions on the economy and, yes, on defence. And by the way, we have put in place the framework of a new global free trading agreement through Comprehensive and Progressive Trans-Pacific Partnership and other trade deals. We've got an amazing opportunity before us if only we would seize it, but Labour never will.
It's really interesting speaking to you because you were the Minister for exiting the EU. The reason that I voted to leave, and this is just as a voter speaking to you as an ex-minister, was, and I always use the analogy of Germany after the Second World War, they went back into themselves and created an economy from scratch that created brand and created wealth by just concentrating. And I always believed that this was an island. I always believed that if we left the European Union and cast aside the shackles, that we could make great things to sell across the world. It would revitalise business. It would give us the chance to stick our chest out and say, this is Great Britain. But we've regressed to the point where nobody wants to, well, it seems the government doesn't even want to use the words Great Britain. You can't fly the flag. Nobody can set up a business, Steve, because NI is out of the way and workers' rights and the minimum wage and all this stuff. And it's almost like the very establishment that you said that were anti the democratic decision of the British people have done everything to step on that dream. Just a question, why are the establishment, or were or are the establishment so against Brexit?
I'm afraid since the end of the Second World War, the consensus amongst the opinion-forming elite, politicians, officials, and yes, journalists, yourself being an honourable exception, has been for a kind of managerial society where the government always has to do something. And that is the kind of society which is now in real trouble everywhere and collapsing. No one, I'm sure, listening to this thinks that taxes are too low. Nobody listening to this will think we haven't borrowed enough money or that interest rates have been too high for too long. We've had the reverse. We've had cheap credit and QE, loads of it to get through COVID. We've got enormously high taxes. We've borrowed terrific amounts of money. And of course, regulation is absolutely stultifying across a wide field. Energy prices, petrol, overtaxed, overregulated. It's not markets that are failing us. So the EU is the absolute pinnacle of this managerial society. Now, some people still believe in managerialism, government having something to say about every aspect of their lives, but I don't. I see it failing. So this is why the elite didn't believe in it. I'm afraid it's just what they think, that they should do something. Until the public stand up to politicians and officials and say, oh, actually, we want you out of our lives. We want lower taxes, lighter regulation, to take responsibility for ourselves. Until that moment comes, we'll continue to struggle. But if the British people choose to be free of all this regulation and state control, well, then we will fly and we will flourish. And leaving the EU still gives us the opportunity to do that, albeit with a different government.
What's happened to politicians nowadays? You speak so well, you talk complete common sense, and yet you're not in the House of Commons, and we've got people who can't even string two words together. Great to have you on, pal. Enjoy your Easter. Plenty of chocolate to be had, I suspect, in the Baker household. Will that be fair?
Possibly. It might happen. It might happen. I've still got a few pounds to lose.
Good man. Great to have you on. Steve Baker, former Conservative government minister. In fact, the Minister for exiting the European Union. On the day, Keir Starmer makes no secret of the fact he wants closer ties with the EU. Your thoughts on that? 0344 499 1000 on Trump. This is brilliant. On Sadiq Khan. Those images in Clapham, they're AI generated. London's an incredibly safe city, and while we're at it, it's just propaganda furthered by the right wing for their own needs. Those aren't real people looting Clapham and nicking cars. No, they're not. Look, that's all AI. I'm going to lie down in a dark room. Back in 3.
across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Welcome back. It's madness here. 20 minutes to 9. We're live across the United Kingdom. A very good morning to you. This is Talk Breakfast on the home of common sense and the home of the alarm clock. Brett 0344 499 1000. Text to 87222. Morning, Brian.
Good morning, Jez. Brian from Hayes here. Regarding Norman Brennan, the Met, they can't catch a rapist, a thug, or a burglar, but they can hand out 850,000 speeding fines a year. And that 850,000 speeding fines puts £85 million into Sadiq Khan's coffers. The police are wrong, mate.
Many people talking about that interview we did with Norman Brennan. I'm going to cut it up and play it to you at the 9 o'clock news. He delivered sort of a 3-minute speech about the state of this country, the state of the police, and how the world seemingly looks through a different lens to when we were kids. It's utterly fascinating. We'll play that after 9. Keep those calls coming. Let's say a very good morning, legendary man, former police detective and investigative journalist Mark Williams-Thomas. Good morning, Mark. How are you?
Good morning. Very well, thank you. How are you?
Been a while, my friend. Been a while.
It has. But obviously back in the news again, another sad story.
Yeah, the Scott Mills thing. I tended to concentrate, my friend, on the BBC and their shortcomings, either in terms of vetting. Personally, love to know your take. It came out overnight. They might have known. They didn't know. I'm not an expert. I know a bit. I suspect we're waiting for more to this story in a Sunday exclusive. That's what I think. Thoughts?
Yeah, I mean, my criticism has been around the BBC's handling of this. Of course, post-Savile, 2012, 2013, the floodgates opened and loads of people contacted me, contacted the authorities, and as a result of that, they did start to investigate many cases that either hadn't been investigated properly before or new victims came forward. And as a result of that, there were a number of high-profile individuals that were named. And what we now know, of course, is that back in 2017, Scott Mills was named and a subsequent police investigation commenced. The problem here is when you look in terms of what lessons have been learned from the BBC, is that they would have known about that at the time. Now, initially, they stayed quiet on it. They didn't make any comment on it. I posted and said, look, the BBC would have known. And that's because I spoke to somebody, one of my contacts within the Operation U-Tree that was disbanded, but part of that set-up team. And they were very close contact with the organisations and companies where people of a high-profile nature were being investigated, because, of course, it has big bearing. So they did know. They've eventually come out and said that. The questions now, of course, is what was known then and why did they not take any action? And then what was subsequently known in the most recent weeks that suddenly caused them to do a knee-jerk reaction, which is to sack him. And the BBC, I'm a huge fan of the BBC.
Are you?
And like you, we'll have many journalist friends that work across there. The problem is it's management.
Yeah.
And I say that from a point of view, I know Tim Davies, and he's done a great job at the BBC since he's been there. But sometimes these things just don't make their way up to the DG. And as I'm led to believe, he didn't actually know about this until more recently.
But my argument with that, Mark, would be we live in a world now where, accountability is a must. Boris Johnson was sacked quite rightly in the end because he oversaw a building in which Partygate. We've got a Prime Minister at the moment who refuses to accept responsibility for stuff underneath him, like anti-Semitism. I would say this about the BBC. I mean, that particular story, Bud, I'm with you. I don't want to get too personal about it, but they must have known, but they kept him on air. My point is, when he made his statement yesterday, I know a little bit about this, if they sacked him last week on the basis, of something that they knew about, that he was not guilty for, and they still employed him 8 years ago. I wouldn't have been making a statement like that. I'd have been suing the BBC in a damn heartbeat, which is why, to me, it smacks of there's some new information. There were rumours that it might have been on the back of that Channel 5 Hugh Edwards documentary, that somebody else might have come forward. I don't know if that's the truth. There are people, Mark, who say Tim Davies' last day at the BBC today. Is this clearing the decks? As his successor demanded, you know, a fresh, clean slate? But whatever the case of the Scott Mills truth, the BBC is... You say there are good journalists, they do some good stuff, but they are mired in stuff that just for a broadcaster, for a national broadcaster, I think is you have to question it because we're being forced to pay for it. I think that's people's reaction.
Yeah, you know, it's a huge bureaucracy in terms of the BBC and the failings they made post-Savile. I think what's happened is that the initial investigation that was looked at by the police, and of course they took it to the Crown Prosecution Service, they wouldn't have submitted a file to Crown Prosecution Service unless they felt there was sufficient evidence to warrant asking for a charge. Of course, that's then come back and said no. They've gone back to the BBC. The question is, what did the BBC do then as far as their own risk assessments in respect of him? He's a high-profile individual who is in a position of trust. Did they undertake a thorough risk assessment in terms of risk and not criminality? They're two entirely different matters. And then once they've done that, what did they do in those post years after that? I suspect what's happened is that the contact they've had more recently is with an alleged victim. So previous to that, they wouldn't have had any contact. It would have all been done via the police. I suspect that they've had direct contact with an alleged victim who's given them some real details, probably built on the information they knew previously. And as a result, they've had to take action. Don't forget also, the feeling in the Times make a difference in terms of how the Crown Prosecution Service and the police and the BBC react. Around the time of this, we had Cliff Richard, we had a number of the other things, Harvey Proctor, that was going on. And that meant that the pendulum had swung completely the other way. So whereas post-Savile, we had a situation where people were being arrested, we then swung completely the other way. And the Crown Prosecution and the police were really reticent to take single allegations to court. And as a result of that, some of those cases that were most probably being prosecuted 2 or 3 years earlier were not being prosecuted. I think there's more to come. I think you're absolutely right. Wait for this weekend. There will be some revelations this weekend about some more detail. You know, the Mirror have been doing a sterling job in terms of really getting underneath what's been going on. But I think, you know, my contacts are certainly telling me that there is more to come from this story over the forthcoming week.
It's really interesting, actually, to finish what you just said. I'd thought along the line of there must be something else, but you're right, it could be direct on the basis of Hugh Edwards or not. It could be the actual victim, or is that the right word? I don't know. A person involved.
Yeah, it's the alleged complainant victim.
To speak specifically to the BBC and maybe say, I'm going to go to a newspaper on the back of what happened with Thingy, and they've gone, oh my God, there's more to this than we realise. Be very interesting. Mate, a lot of people... and I get this, I've been at the centre of it once myself. A lot of people will criticise investigative journalism, but in these instances, these stories need to be told. And certainly when we talk about the BBC, when we talk about a national state broadcast that we're all paying for, forced to pay for in some cases, I think transparency is massively important.
I think that's the key, isn't it, Jez? Is transparency is key. The BBC is a public body. Come out and tell us exactly what you know. And I think, you know, Scott Mills' statement yesterday was very telling in terms of how he went. You know, it was obviously drafted by a lawyer, not by a PR consultant. Because the reality is, if it had been drawn by a PR consultant, he'd have come out and said, I categorically deny the allegations are there. He doesn't. No. He follows the line of the Crown Prosecution Service and the police. I think there's a lot more to this. You know, Scott Mills himself will be very reluctant to make any comments because whatever he says, he's going to have to kind of open himself up to questions. He'll have his head down and disappear. The BBC now need to be fully accountable. And this is the problem with the BBC, is that their PR management and their crisis management is shocking. They did it with Savile and they've done it again now. Just be entirely transparent, open up the cards and just say, look, this is what we knew, this is what we did. And if you got it wrong, just put your hands up and say we got it wrong. I mean, it's a shocking, really. They don't have the right people in place to make those risk management decisions, which clearly should have been done.
Couldn't agree more. Great to have you on, pal, and good to see you. We'll catch up very soon. Mark Williams-Thomas, former police detective and investigative journalist. Thank you so much indeed. Morning, Carl.
I have had a police officer move in, well, he's a detective, and he's moved in next door to me. He moved in 2 weeks ago. And I got speaking to him yesterday, really for the first time, having a good old chat. Asked him what he'd done. He said he was retired. I said, you don't look old enough. He says, I'm ex-police. He says, ex-detective. And I says, how come you've retired so early then? And his words was, it's just a waste of time. He said, the police, and he said, I'm disillusioned with it. He said, I just couldn't do it anymore. He says, we've gone from policing now, he said basically to being internet police. He says, we cannot do anything. He says, and if we arrest anybody from a different demographic than English, he said they come down above. He said they come down on us like a ton of rocks. He says they go mad.
Policing, in the words of Norman Brennan, who was on the show earlier, is almost a no-go area. We'll play that, a little clip of that interview being asked for by many after the news at 9. Time, though, 10 to 9. This man used to come on my show regularly. Now he's achieved such high importance as political editor of The Sun. I'm not deigned with his presence very often, which is a disgrace, because I made him. Jack Elson, good morning. How are you, sir?
A very, very good morning to you, Jeremy. Pleased to be on, as always.
I felt this massive amount of pride yesterday. I'm going to play a clip. You stood up, you asked Starmer a question that I thought was incredibly well put, and I thought, that's my boy. I was like a proud dad. Have a watch, peeps. This is Elsom in action yesterday to, ready for this? The Ayatollah Khomeini. Here we go.
Do your manifesto commitments not to rejoin the customs union, free movement or single market still stand? And you've previously said from this podium that you wouldn't be forced to choose between tethering Britain closer to either Europe or America, but it does seem that you are engaging with closer negotiations with Europe and you have a deteriorating personal relationship with Donald Trump. So is it fair that you are actually choosing Europe over America?
I'm not going to choose because I think it's in our interest to have a strong relationship with the US and with Europe, but I do think that when it comes to defence and security, energy, emissions and the economy, we need a stronger relationship with Europe. I actually think that will help strengthen our relationship with the US because successive presidents have said that Europe needs to do more on their defence and security. I've long argued that with European colleagues, that we should be doing more.
Jack's quite interesting. Mark, who works on the show, just made a good point. He said during the election, all that Keir Starmer said was, I'm going to stop the boats. Now he's talking about Europe. Your article in The Sun today, brilliant as ever, dear boy. Stop the boats, not until we stop what lures them. I couldn't agree more. Stop it. We're a soft touch, aren't we, pal?
Yeah, totally. And so, you know, the France deal struck by Rishi Sunak 3 years ago has clearly proved to be a complete dud because far more boats slip through the net of these hapless French police than are thwarted by them, despite the £500 million we've bunged them since 2023. Every time Britain has tried to ask France to toughen up their tactics, we've essentially been royally rebuffed by Emmanuel Macron. But actually, the point I make in this piece is that we shouldn't even be relying on the French to police our own borders. Any sovereign, self-respecting nation cannot outsource control of its borders to their neighbours. It relies with our own government. And the French are equally exasperated, as many voters in Britain, about the failure to stop the pull factors, which are really luring people here in the first place. And so, you know, your viewers will be familiar with them, you know, free bed and board hotels, pocket money to go out spending, a warped legal system, which basically allows for constant challenges and appeals thwarting deportations. These are the things which really we should be focusing on, rather than stuffing Emmanuel Macron's mouth full of gold for what I imagine will be more broken promises, no progress in stopping boats. Shabana Mahmood says she wants a performance-related contract in which we only pay them when they stop the boats. What's been going on for the past 3 years? Why have we been paying them for the past 3 years if they're not stopping all these boats?
I've always said that the biggest deterrent and the biggest way, and you are absolutely right in your article today, is the pull factor. And the reason that this is at the forefront, I think, of people's minds is, as Britain's we just got on with our lives. But as the noose has tightened, as your supermarket shop's gone through the roof, as your petrol prices have gone up, I don't think we buy now that Starmer's going to blame... I mean, he spent 18 months blaming the Tories. Now he's going to blame the war in Iraq. The fact of the matter is that economically, socially, we are behind the 8 ball. And then you see these people coming into this country. I don't think it's far right or racist to say. They suddenly end up in a hotel, like you said, a mobile phone, a credit card. They'll see a GP. They get their teeth fixed. And now we live in a country where they go, there's 40 grand, by the way. You can disappear, put it in your bank from the country you don't want to be in and come back. The whole thing's a farce. And I despair sometimes, Bud, whether actually... Not whether politicians have got a plan, whether there's anybody with a pair big enough and the will inside their heart to do something about this, because the British people are crying out for that, Jack, crying out for it.
Yeah, you're totally right. And I think the British people are also sick of just chucking good money after bad when it comes to solving this problem. You know, they try and pull the wool over your eyes with these false binaries. And so what they'll say is that actually paying a family £40,000 to leave quietly is cheaper than keeping in a hotel while they fight endless deportations. But it's not cheaper than actually tightening up our legal systems so that you can get rid of them pretty cost effectively and easily. You know, so what they do is constantly throw up these false dichotomies to make it seem like they're getting value for money for the taxpayer, whereas actually it's anything but. We're seeing the same with this renegotiation when it comes to France. You know, I think that
they're still giving him £2 million a week, which is $100 million a year, whilst they're negotiating, for God's sake.
Exactly, they signed a 2-month extension for the modest sum of £16 million. You know, that is an enormous amount of money to be paying for not very many results. And what they do, ministers, is they cling to the statistic that France has stopped 40,000 since 2023. But actually, that in itself is a bogus figure, because they may stop 40,000, but those 40,000 are not then detained. They are sent back to the camps in northern France, but often they just have another crack at getting across. And so it's well within the realms of possibility that those 40,000 are actually here right now. And so, you know, for them to sort of say that actually the French are doing a great job is just, it's just beyond reproach. But, you know, again, we shouldn't be relying on France to be able to police these borders. You know, it's like the drugs trade. You know, you can pour billions and billions of pounds into enforcement. If there is a market for it, then the gangs will always outfox the authorities. And I think that is the problem here. You need to get rid of the demand rather than constantly trying to tackle the supply.
I'm in total awe of you today. I'm being very nice to you. The political editor of The Sun, the amazing Jack. Brilliant, by the way, mate. Great article. Page 15. Thank you as ever for your support, The Sun. Page 15, Jack Elsom on Talk Breakfast. News at 9. Loads to come. Don't go anywhere. I'm off for a wee. I'll be back in 3.
Seven. RS-25 engines lit. 4, 3, 2, 1. Booster ignition. And lift off. The crew of Artemis 2 now bound for the moon.
Houston now controlling the flight of Integrity on the Artemis 2 mission around the moon.
Integrity, AMT high.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Over the past 36 hours, the United States and its partners have launched Operation Epic Fury, one of the largest, most complex, most overwhelming military offensives the world has ever seen. Nobody's seen anything like it. We have hit hundreds of targets in Iran, including Revolutionary Guard facilities, Iranian air defense systems. Just now, it was announced that we knocked out 9 ships plus their naval building, all in a matter of literally minutes. Iran's formerly supreme leader, Ayatollah Khamenei, is dead.
I spoke to you about the situation in the Gulf and explained that the United Kingdom was not involved in the strikes on Iran. That remains the case. The basis of our decision is the collective self-defence of long-standing friends and allies and protecting British lives. That is in accordance with international law, and we are publishing a summary of our legal advice. We are not joining these strikes, but we will continue with our defensive actions in the region.
Mr Farage, would a reform government have allowed US forces to use UK air bases for offensive operations in Iran?
Yes is the answer to your question. I would have said to the Americans, please do use our bases. We will be supportive of you on this.
There were a series of very loud blasts in the area of Dubai that I'm based in. That's in the marina area. It's a very touristy area, actually. Those blasts were the loudest we've heard yet, but equally we are reassured that they are most likely the sound of interception by the UAE's quite sophisticated THAAD interception kit. That is the Terminal High Altitude Area Defence System.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Welcome back, my friends. Just gone 9 o'clock. Breakfast till 10, and then Julia, of course, if you want to be on. It is the home of common sense. It's the home of the alarm clock Brit. You can be involved. Your views on the news always welcome. 0344 499 1000. Text to 87222. In a minute, a great guest, former Foreign Office Foreign Secretary and Defence Secretary Sir Malcolm Rifkin on this show. So much you're waking up to. We'll talk about Trump and his threats, whether they're the latest rhetoric or they hold some weight. We'll talk about Starmer, who is desperate, it seems. The shades are off. The shackles have gone. He's made it absolutely known he wants closer links with the EU. Be interesting to see what people think about that. Rachel Reeves, who was telling us all that she was a trained economist, has finally worked out how you make money, which is she suddenly decided that drilling in the North Sea would be a good idea. Be interesting to see what Miliband, who runs this country, thinks about that. But the story that's really got traction this morning, you'll have seen, I suspect, the footage from Clapham in London over the last couple of nights. Just 300 or 400 youths running amok inspired apparently to meet there on social media. 2 or 3 limp-wristed policemen saying, please don't do that. Absolutely outrageous scenes, looting shops, taking cars, just unbelievable. And I have to say, so many of you have had so much to say about this. 0344 499 1000. Morning, Andy.
Morning, Jez. Andy from Birmingham. Hope you're well, mate. Cracking show this morning. Just listened to Norman Brennan on. The guy speaks with so much passion from an ex-cop. I mean, I'm no... I've had a few run-ins with them myself over the last few years, but they used to come down on us like a ton of bricks, mate, but the respect was still there. And, very rarely used to cross the line. Okay, there's a few bad apples in every barrel, he'll tell you that. But what he said to you this morning in the show is 100% correct. We're in some kind of pickle when the Mayor of London is basically denying everything. We're in a right old pickle, mate. If they get away with it, they'll keep doing it. It's like anything in the world. If you let somebody get away with it, they'll keep doing it. Anyway, bud, great show. Happy Easter, bud. Ta-da.
This is the pictures you've seen and the news that you've read. In response to that, the elected Mayor of London, Sadiq Khan, said London is a safe city and people are just spreading false right-wing propaganda because it serves their interest. Tony was a DCI in Norfolk. He says, I totally agree with Norman Brennan, but it's also imperative that the training of constables and the powers given by a stronger leadership by government and senior cops is addressed. For all of you who didn't hear what Norman Brennan said, probably one of the most impassioned speeches ever. Have a listen.
Britain is lawless. There are areas of London that are no-go areas. Croydon, Thornton Heath, Stoke Newington, Hounslow, Brixton, Harleston, Kilburn, Wilson. I know all these areas. I used to bloody police them. And I'm sick and tired of this country living in fear. We need leaders with vision, direction, passion and ability. We do not have the police service that the public need, and I despair for the future. We are not robust enough. We are not going to be robust enough. And what does the government do about knife crime that's an epidemic? He decriminalises it for those under the age of 18 and who are bloody killing people, stabbing people, carrying knives. It's the 4,000 gangs in Britain, 200 in London, that are carrying these bloody knives. I could swear all day long. I've been saying the same thing, Jeremy, for 15 years as a serving police officer. If they never listened and acted when I went to number 10 Downing Street with homicide families, when I wrote to every MP warning them that crime and disorder will get out of control unless we act, I don't know who else this government or anyone will actually listen to. We are lawless in London. Khan is wrong, and only the other day, I listed all the stabbings this year, all the murders this year, all of the mortuaries that are filling with children and young people, people carrying knives and guns. There's no police officer on the street. A victim doesn't see a police officer when they're burgled, have their car stolen, their bike stolen. We turned up to every single call when I was a police officer. We didn't always get the result, but the public liked us and respected us. Because we turned up, we listened and did our best for them. I'm afraid I can't say the same today, Jeremy.
That was Norman Brennan. Gerald, sir, the call from that man about lawless Britain was just one of the most compelling pieces of TV I've ever seen. You should repeat it every hour until everyone has seen it. Passionate, articulate and not to be ignored. Good morning to my next guest, former Foreign and Defence Secretary. Great to have him on. Sir Malcolm Rifkin, good morning, sir. How are you?
Good morning to you.
Respond to Norman Brennan. There have been many issues on the streets, certainly the stuff you've seen in Clapham, Sir Malcolm, the last few nights. Our Mayor of London, he's not my mayor, says London is a safe city and this is propagated by the right wing because it serves their interests. Missing the point completely, my friend.
Well, the mayor's comments are pretty foolish, talking about right-wing conspiracies and all that nonsense. There is a policing issue here, and I'm not an expert in this, but it's perfectly obvious that the police have to be present in Clapham or wherever these events are taking place, and they're in sufficient numbers in a proper professional way to deal with those causing the mischief.
Couldn't agree more. Malcolm, there's so much I want to talk to you about. I think former Foreign and Defence Secretary... Let's start with Donald Trump. Now, it is understandable that people will quite rightly jump up and down and say, come on, the man's losing the plot, he should never have gone in there, and blah, blah, blah. And there's much, as I've said on many occasions to anybody who listens, there's a lot about this man that I don't like. But I want to take you back to when he was elected and talk about NATO. Overnight, we were told that he might well decide to abandon NATO. Whether that happens or not, he was right, was he not, when he came in and said, we spend far more than all of you lot to protect yourselves. And my next question would be, when Europe and NATO reacted and decided to spend more on defence, did he have a point when he said, you should have jumped when I said jump, when I decided I wanted to do this, because essentially I've been paying to defend you for years?
Well, one has to start with the fact that Trump is the first American president who, whatever he's commenting on, uses such ugly, ill-informed, very, very insulting and nasty language. And he does that equally to whether it's his friends and allies or to his enemies. And he makes America as a whole very embarrassed that their head of state, their head of government, is such a disgusting man. But in terms of the specific policy issues you've mentioned, it's difficult to find good things he's done, but I have no problem with his encouragement, albeit his style was repulsive. But I have no difference with his view that Britain, France, Germany, other European countries had to spend more on defence. That process is now happening. It's not happening as quickly or as much as I personally would like, but it's certainly going seriously in the right direction.
Whatever we think of him as a man, and there's much I agree with what you've said, but why should it take an American president to not force, but make Europe see that they need to defend themselves? We know, and you know this better than me, it's been the easiest cut for years over successive governments. Let's decimate, if you like, I think, the armed forces. We surely, as a nation, isn't our government's number one job to responsibly protect its people and its country?
Yes, but let's get this in perspective. The turning point was the end of the Cold War in the 1990s, when under Gorbachev and then under Yeltsin, Russia became not an ally, but a pretty good friend, and we could work constructively together. And every country in the world that had been involved in the Cold War dramatically reduced defense expenditure. Not just Europeans, but the United States itself did, and Russia did it more than anybody else. Where we all, I think, were remiss was that when Putin became in charge of Russia and started an aggressive policy, then that should have been the warning that was taken account of.
Why wasn't it, Malcolm?
As far as the American position is concerned,
why wasn't it?
Don't get overwhelmed by the amount they spend on defense. Remember, they have two problems. One is what might happen with Russia. The other is on the other side of the United States, what happens with China. And when America came into the Second World War, rather late in the day, they only did so not because of Hitler or Mussolini, but because Pearl Harbor had been attacked by China. So that accounts for a very large chunk of their very massive defence expenditure.
But it isn't wrong to say, is it? I mean, I know you agree. We can talk about... I don't want to talk about the man. The fact of the matter is whether Europe in its entirety, with the Cold War, en masse decided to de-escalate militarily, the fact of the matter is it would be a perfectly justifiable criticism that at some point, a certain government in the last number of years did not react to Putin taking charge, did not have the foresight to do... Somebody gave me a figure the other day, Malcolm. He used to be Defence Secretary. There are less in our joint armed forces than people who have come to this country illegally in the last 18 months. That's an appalling statistic. What did Lord Dannett say to me this morning? I asked him, you know, Starmer had said we're not ready for war. I asked Lord Dannett, would we be able to be competitive in a war without NATO or America? And he went, no, that's an appalling indictment of the United Kingdom, isn't it?
Well, yes, but not just of the United Kingdom. That is true of all European countries. And it's true of most countries in the world, I may say. Do remember the United Kingdom, with all the legitimate criticisms you've made, the United Kingdom at the moment has the 5th largest defence budget in the world. Now, you may ask, well, if we have such a vast defense budget, why do we not have larger numbers of troops and equipment and so forth? And it's basically for two reasons. Something like 20% of our defense budget is on the Trident nuclear weapons, which should not be part of our day-to-day defense budget. It should be funded separately.
Right.
But it is part of our defense budget. And secondly, we insist quite rightly, in one sense, that we always have the best kit available. But the best aircraft and the best ships happen also to be those that are mega expensive. And what we have to do, and do quickly, is to reassess that assumption. And maybe it would be better to have 20 frigates rather than half a dozen, even if they were not of the exceptional quality that makes them so expensive that they can't be afforded.
Listen, I would never take issue with you. You've done both of the jobs. I just think that successive governments have made a choice, whether the rest of the world has done it or not. We find ourselves in a position, and I think this is a relevant point, where we can't defend ourselves without NATO. Fine, many people will say that's important. And yes, taking aside the way Trump is, I completely understand your criticisms, but we have been heavily reliant. Can I ask you, as a former Foreign Secretary and indeed Defence Secretary, if we go back 5 weeks, it turns out that Keir Starmer was correct in the eyes of the British people when he said, and I quote, "I'm not getting involved with those sorties, those early sorties with planes." If you'd been in the positions that you were at that time, would you have dilly-dallied about giving them access to those bases from which to fly their bombers, or would you have said, no, literally, this is our biggest ally, we can separate those two things, and you'd have given them access straight away, Sir Malcolm?
OK, let me try and respond to that. First of all, I do agree with you. I think Starmer was correct in saying this is not a war we should be fighting, and America has chosen to go to war without even consulting its NATO allies. There was not the slightest consultation with us, so that he can hardly criticize the response he's had. But in terms of the specific point about the use of the bases, no, I think it would have been far better if Starmer right away had said, you must take full responsibility with what you do with US aircraft taking off from these bases, but whether you use them in that way, that's your decision, not ours.
Starmer keeps saying that we're not in this war, and yet all of a sudden so much that is happening in this country, according to Starmer, is as a result of a war that is 4 weeks old. So is Britain in this war indirectly, Sir Malcolm?
Well, the whole world is in it. That's not a question that's peculiar to Britain. The whole world has been affected by it, and that is part of the criticism one has to make of the President of the United States. And one can't get away from the individual who is responsible for this. Normally, you go to war either when you have been attacked, which America had not been at that time, or when you have some such fundamental national interest that you share with your allies, that you share with the wider world, that you have to take action. Now, none of these criteria were met. And in a very reckless way, Trump decided, because of what he'd done in Venezuela, what he'd done on some other issues, that such was the might of the American forces that he could do what he liked and that the Iranians would crumble.
When you say about fundamental interest, it's important when we have a debate that we look at all sides, and I acknowledge then that Starmer, in my mind, was right to not go on those initial sorties. But I had an argument with somebody the other day, discussion, I should say, and he said something that sort of gelled in my head. Whether or not Trump's trying to police the world, the fact of the matter is, Sir Malcolm Rifkin, that the mad mullahs of Tehran have financed every single proxy terrorist organisation in the world for years. And try telling the parents of a victim of the Manchester Arena bombing that regime shouldn't be brought to its knees. That's your issue. I get that Trump's gone in without telling NATO, and I get all of that, but it's a relevant point.
I fully share what you have said, but you've missed the fundamental point, that if you wish to destroy the Iranian regime, and that is such an overriding priority, you can't just do it by bombing from the air. There is just no precedent for a regime, a government suddenly resigning or suddenly disappearing because of bombing from the air. That's what Hitler tried to do to Britain during the Blitz. And what it did is it made the British more stubborn than ever, and rightly so. So that was foolish. If it was as crucial to destroy the regime, and I would dearly love to see them disappear, the only way you could actually do that would be by an invasion of Iran. Then that would require not 10,000 US Marines, but 150,000 US troops, and we'd be back with all the ghastliness of the Iraq War and Afghanistan, when even that turned out to have been not as successful as people had hoped. So
where do you see it? Where do you see, great words? Where do you see it ending, Sir Malcolm? Genuinely, do you see it retreating?
Notwithstanding what Trump said last night, I think we're now in the final. Trump has now realized he's no longer talking about regime change. He's pretending he already got it. Typical distortion in language. He's no longer talking about we will only stop this war if you have already agreed that the Straits of Hormuz should be open. He's now saying, well, once we stop the war, the Straits of Hormuz will gradually open anyway. And he's coming up with things that were perfectly obvious a few weeks ago when he was saying the exact opposite. So it's a pity we have to wait another 2 or 3 weeks. He's been saying to the American public, the war will be concluded in 2 or 3 weeks. And then he goes and says the most crass, stupid things. In the meantime, we're going to bomb the Iranians back to the Stone Age. I mean, what a foul remark, and what a stupid remark, when he knows perfectly well he hasn't got the power to do that, and there is no justification for talking about bombing people back to the Stone Age.
Is he?
That's not just the regime, that would be the whole country.
Is this attack on Iran in your mind? Is it the biggest mistake of his 2 presidencies?
Well, it's difficult to say which has been the biggest mistake. I mean, he made an equally stupid mistake with the Chinese when he tried to impose massive tariffs. And within days, they said, well, if you're going to impose tariffs on us, we will stop selling to you the rare earths, the rare minerals that you require for so much of your equipment. And he caved in. And so, there's a new word in the language that is being created. It's called taco. Trump always chickens out. He makes threats, and he sometimes carries out threats, but they don't deliver the results. And he ends up not only making a fool of himself, but damaging the United States. And that's not good for any of us. The trouble is the ugly American has come back. That was a phrase used 40, 50 years ago. And the vast majority of Americans are not ugly Americans. They're decent, law-abiding people like the rest of us hope to be. What he's done is ensured that the United States is no longer trusted because its president will say one thing one day and the opposite the next, and not even admit that he's changed powers. And remember what he said about the British in Afghanistan?
Yeah, disgusting.
He started off by saying how they'd not fought in the front line. And when it was obvious to him that that was a lie and that was untrue, he didn't admit his mistake. He just started praising the British in Afghanistan as though he said nothing different 24 hours earlier. This is terrible, absolutely terrible.
Final question for you, former Foreign and Defence Secretary, Sir Keir Starmer. We've already acknowledged that 70% of people will believe that he got it right about not going to war in effect, but many people, I'm sure yourself included, are open-mouthed at the mistakes this man continues to make. I'll be interested in your response to this. The accusation latest against him is that he's using the war in Iraq to get us closer to Europe. He was quite open yesterday about wanting closer links. The shackles are off. He'd like to tie us closely again to the EU. Your thoughts, Sir Malcolm Rifkind?
Well, as often, the words used can sometimes be rather unwise, and Starmer is not famous for his way of explaining himself. Do remember that whether you were for Brexit or against Brexit, the European Union has never been a military alliance. It has no army. Its job is not foreign policy primarily, nor questions of use of the armed forces. That is NATO. And so it absolutely makes sense, whether you're for the European Union or against it, for on matters of defence and national security, Britain, France and Germany work, along with other NATO countries from Europe, work closely together in the common interest, and it would be damn silly if we didn't. We went into the First World War and the Second World War because we knew that if you had a despot like the Kaiser or Hitler controlling continental Europe, that threatened our security. So it's not a question of theory, it's a question of part of our fundamental history that Britain, France, Germany, other European countries work as one when we have a threat from Russia, which is what exists at this moment in time.
Final question for you. What do you make of the last 18 months of Sir Keir Starmer's premiership, Sir Malcolm?
I think on foreign policy, it's been a mixed verdict. Because he has made some sensible decisions and some ones that can be criticised. On domestic policy, it's been awful, been absolutely ghastly, because he's got no political judgment. And the problem is that a prime minister has to, first of all, you don't start by alienating your own supporters by cancelling parts of the winter fuel allowance when they've waited 14 years for a Labour government. That was just dumb. But since then, the various reversals of policy show that we have a government which at the moment, and it's difficult to see who could lead the Labour Party that would make it dramatically different, that will have political wisdom so that they can inspire the public while working on improving the economy and getting back to economic growth. You have to work with the public. And at the moment, if you've lost the faith of the public, it's unlikely you're going to achieve very much.
Really good to have you on, my friend. Thank you so much indeed. Sir Malcolm Rifkin, former Foreign and Defence Secretary, quite outspoken there. It's interesting. Linda and Stalybridge, a proper politician, not bloody dancing around the streets like some of them. We have to make a correction. Sir Malcolm accidentally said Pearl Harbor was attacked by China. He did, of course, mean Japan. Morning, Ian.
Hi, Jim. It's Ian from East Grinstead. Listening to Malcolm Rifkin talk about Trump. Yes, he's abrasive. Yes, he says it as it is. Yes, he could use more flowery language. But at the end of the day, he says it as it is. Whereas we seem to have had politicians over the last since Thatcher really, who have pussyfooted around, used flowery language, and not actually addressed any issues, which is why the country's in such a poor state. Now, I'm not a great fan of Trump, but I think a lot of what he says is spot on. Okay, he's made a huge mistake in Iran, I think, but let's see, he might still extricate himself, and let's be honest, he's drawn the spotlight on the European so-called allies and their lack of cohesion and support. So, you know, he's looking after America.
RS 25 engines lit. 4, 3, 2, 1. Booster ignition. And liftoff. The crew of Artemis 2 now bound for the moon.
Houston now controlling the flight of integrity on the Artemis 2 mission around the moon.
Integrity, AMT high.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Welcome back. 9:28. We're live across the UK. Julia Hartley-Brewer here from 10. Maggie in London. All Malcolm Rifkin was doing was showing his dislike for Trump. Things have changed since he was Defence Secretary. I didn't hear anything positive, just condemnation. Listen, he's been a politician for a long, long time, and it's good to have different opinions on this show. Many of you will support Trump. Many, like me, have supported stuff that Trump has done in the past, but can look at what's happening in Iran and go, this isn't good. It wasn't thought through. But you'll also hear me say, he's absolutely right about NATO. You can't expect to, oh, you just keep paying for it, you keep defending us, and the first time we ask for your help, we tell you to sod off. Doesn't work like that. It's give and take, isn't it? 0344 499 1000. Just quickly, as a little side note, just got handed this. I do my inspector. That didn't look right. You remember, I don't know if you've seen this Channel 5 documentary about Hugh Edwards, astonishing sort of 90-minute thing with Martin Clunes. It's created much interest. You might have seen in certain media outlets last week that he's got himself a new sort of PR agent who went on Good Morning Britain. There's a statement this morning from Hugh Edwards, which is really very interesting, which I'm just going to throw out there and leave you to work this out yourselves. Much has been written and reported in the past week following Channel 5's one-sided account. Other opportunities will arise later this year for me to state my case and to challenge the misleading or fabricated claims made in recent coverage. A number of serious questions still remain to be answered, and not just by me. It will now take some time for me to produce my own account, and until then I do not intend to comment any further. That's a statement from Hugh Edwards. So it might be, whatever people think, that we see some sort of response from Hugh Edwards. That would be an interesting interview. 0344 499 1000. Just gone 9:30. A very good morning to the former political editor of The Sun, the legend that is Trevor Kavanagh. Morning, Trevor.
Good morning, Jeremy.
That'd be an interesting interview, wouldn't it, with Hugh Edwards?
Yes, I'd love to see it. Would you like to do the interview yourself?
No comment. Trevor, let me ask you specifically at home, because we can talk from now till the end of time about Iran and Trump and NATO, but I want to talk about the footage that we've all seen over the last couple of days in Clapham. Youths in their hundreds, apparently inspired by social media, taking to the streets, attacking cars, looting shops, with sort of three policemen or women limply walking around, waving handcuffs, going, could you please be quiet? Absolutely outrageous, and for many, if you heard Norman Brennan, the sight of things to come. He said, not enough police, a breakdown in law and order, we need to be stronger, we need to be tougher. Overnight, Sadiq Khan, showing that he's got absolutely no political understanding at all, says, and I quote, London's a safe city. This is just people on the right spreading false propaganda because it serves their interest. When you look at that, because I've had loads of texts, feral youths, isn't it? Feral youths, Trevor Kavanagh.
Yes, and all dressed in black and wearing hoodies. They're all wearing a uniform of some sort, aren't they? These are sort of paramilitary young people rampaging through the streets of London and frightening the life out of ordinary people who want to go about their normal daily business.
I mean, we had this huge debate earlier with James and with Samara. People go, oh, the police need to get stronger. And then they say, but we haven't got any police. And then I think back to Southport. I said it earlier. Within 24 hours, Starmer put 6,000 police on the streets, arrested everybody, tried everybody, and threw everybody into jail. So are there policemen and women available that aren't being utilised? And my other question to you, my friend, is we hear so much about how the police spend their time policing social media and arresting people that dare to say something they don't like. Well, why are they not policing social media, Trevor, and realising that these places are being, these demonstrations, or for want of a better phrase, are being organised, and send some police and put the rocket up these youngsters? Why are we so soft, man?
While the police are actually there before they arrive. They're just as capable of getting onto TikTok as these young kids themselves. They should be able to respond very much more quickly to the threat of civil disorder and violence. I mean, these guys are, many of them armed with machetes and swords and knives, and just holding on to those things is a crime, let alone rampaging through the streets and threatening ordinary innocent civilians with them is a bigger crime. And the police should be there in advance. They have the technology to know what's going to happen. They can eavesdrop just as easily as anybody else who is tuned into TikTok to find out what's going on and stop stop it. Stop it before it gets going.
But why don't they? Why? Is there a lack of will politically? Is it is it numbers, if you like, the manpower of the police? Why, when you look at that, like me, do you think, God, this is potentially a view of what society could turn into?
Well, I think that you sort of had the answer in your opening question. Is it because of the political will? Is it because I's black? I think is one of the problems, because they are not going to take any sort of severe action against what's described as the community. And the community is anybody who isn't white. The victims may be white, the victims may also be black or any other colour. But the perpetrators, I think, overwhelmingly are from the so-called community. And they are almost a protected species as far as law and order is concerned.
Brian says, morning, Jez, the mindless morons have been looting in Clapham. I wonder the police response would have been if they were white. In any event, totally unacceptable on our streets. And Barmy Boris did have one good idea, the water cannon, but Starmer and Khan blocked the idea. I say bring them back and they can be used to clean up our streets for many anti-British and anti-law and disorder protests. We surely, Trevor, in fact, whatever the colour of your skin, if you think that behaviour is acceptable, don't we have to show ourselves? It's like being a parent, isn't it? There are the boundaries. You break the boundaries and there are the consequences. There are no consequences to that. There are no consequences to shoplifting. Those pictures will go around the world. That's embarrassing, man.
Not only will they go around the world, they'll encourage others. This is not going to be the final of the rampages through the streets of London suburbs. They like this. This is fun for them. And picking up a few shoplifted goods on the way makes it a rewarding bit of fun as well. So, you know, unless the police come down really hard on these young people before it actually gets off the ground, or once they're rampaging through the streets as they are on their electric scooters and other devices, it's impossible to stop them. All you can do is stand there with your handcuffs in your hand and watch them go past and wave at them.
I quite like the idea of the water cannon. What do you think?
Well, I think so too. And it wasn't actually, it was Theresa May who banned Boris from using those. And I think that much of this spreads way back beyond even the Starmer and Khan years, to the point where basically we decided that certain communities could not be told what to do and what not to do. The rest of the community, the rest of the society lives by the law of the land. But if you get the message from the cops that you can do as you please, you do as you please.
I don't. You see, people will shy away from having this debate because they'll say, oh, you shouldn't be talking about the colour of somebody. I can look at this and talk. It's the same as the rape gang inquiry. I don't want any man, whatever his colour or creed, to think it's acceptable to rape a young child. He does not deserve liberty in my society. I don't believe, as a 60-year-old taxpayer who's got 6 kids, none of my kids will be doing that. I believe it starts at home. I had people ringing me earlier, Trev, going, oh, it's because these kids don't have dads. Well, how disrespectful is that to single mums, many of whom bring up kids and do a fantastic job? That's ridiculous. The fact of the matter is, consequences. There should be consequences. And for whatever reason, we as a country now, the apologists we've become, don't seem to want to punish bad behaviour. We want to seem to make excuses for... I mean, you can imagine it now, can't you? You can imagine it in Khan's London, that you get out a water cannon and fire it at 300 little youths who are running around causing trouble, and within about 5 minutes they'll all be making a claim through whatever department saying they've got anxiety because their hair and clothes got wet and it destroyed the way that they felt for the rest of the day. What a pile of rubbish, honestly. I can't.
Well, I think yes, of course. I mean, you only need to look at the footage there to see what the makeup of the, I think what you might as well describe as a riot. These rioters are from a particular society, and they do come from broken homes. They do come from fatherless communities. And where fatherless communities exist, you have a higher incidence of crime, you have poorer education, you have poorer social discipline. They are more likely to suffer ill health in later life. They are more likely to go to prison. The children of fatherless families are the ones who are very hard to keep under control once you get an adolescent of 14, 15. Mothers simply cannot keep control of them. And this is a problem for society.
I'm not sure. I mean, I'm not sure. But is it a sweeping fact, though? I know plenty of people who are more terrified of their mum than anybody in the world. Maybe you're right. My father-in-law's been on, Trev. Whenever you're on, my father-in-law texts me, bring back the bloody water cannon. Let's talk Europe. Keir Starmer, it struck me yesterday. Did you see the clip of Starmer? Let's play it. This is Starmer saying, yeah, let's rejoin the EU, basically. Have a watch.
Our long-term national interest requires closer partnership with our allies in Europe and with the European Union. But as the Chancellor has rightly pointed out, Brexit did deep damage to our economy, and the opportunities to strengthen our security and cut the cost of living are simply too big to ignore. So, in the coming weeks, we will announce a new summit with our EU partners. We want to be more ambitious, closer economic cooperation.
The coalition of the willing is going to morph into a meeting of European partners. Where do you stand on this? Because the shackles are off. He's going to rejoin us, and they're going to absolutely destroy us, aren't they?
This is the opportunity he's been waiting for the last 10 years. And Quentin Letts makes a very good point in today's Daily Mail that Anthony Albanese in Australia made a very similar speech about the threats to Australian economy and defence and security from the fallout from the Iran war. He didn't mention the European Union or need to get back into the European Union. The other countries don't feel the need to embrace this failed state, which is what the European Union is. They have no defence as a European Union. There are no forces involved in Europe, only NATO. We have to start thinking about what we do with people who are really the coalition of the willing. People like NATO, like Germany and Poland and other countries which are rearming, and we are not rearming. We are not spending extra money on the weapons we need to defend this country. And the first duty of any government is to defend the country. And Keir Starmer, looking like his own spitting image puppet yesterday, is certainly not doing so.
It's really interesting. This is how good you are, Cabinet. Nobody in this building, well, in this studio, had thought of that. He's using the excuse of the Iran war to forge closer ties with Europe. But Europe isn't useless militarily. Absolutely. That's fantastic. He sort of... He doesn't, I mean, so many people are mad about him anyway, but he doesn't really inspire the belief that things can get better. I want to finish, I can't wait for your response to this. There was a eureka moment overnight, Trev. You know Rachel from Accounts? I don't know whether she's been on a 24-hour, how to work out profit and loss. Rachel Reeves now backs drilling in the North Sea and has caused a huge rift with Ed Miliband. Should we salute her, finally?
Well, we could do a form of salute. I'm not quite sure it would be the one that people would recognise, mostly, I think, with 2 digits. I think that we are going to have to drill in the North Sea, but it will be over Ed Miliband's dead body. And Ed Miliband is extremely popular within the Labour Party at large, and Keir Starmer doesn't have the nerve or the courage to do anything about him or to get rid of him, which is the only way that any cabinet is going to agree to start drilling and saving this country and delivering the energy we need.
Mate, it's always an absolute pleasure to have you on. Really appreciate it. There he is. What a man, the ledge. Trevor Kavanagh, thank you very much indeed. 0344 499 1000, 18 minutes to 10. Next, a bit of a showbiz surprise, mate. It's all right. Morning, Phil.
Good morning, Jeremy. Phil from Hearts. Listening to Sir Malcolm, I think a lot of these politicians, past and present, they're out of touch. Do they realise who Trump is actually dealing with? Since when do the likes of Iran, Iraq in the past, Afghanistan, the Houthis, when do they worry and concern themselves about constraints? It's a different type of warfare. These people need to wake up and realise they don't go by the rules. They don't go by terms and rules of engagement. This is why we're in a mess. These politicians are way, way out of touch with reality.
across the UK. On DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Welcome back, 9:45. We're live across the United Kingdom. We're lining up today with Julia Hartley-Brewer, the First Lady of Broadcasting, here from 10 o'clock. Ian Collins, the Housewife's Choice from 1, and Kev O'Sullivan. Nothing to say about him. He's here from 4 o'clock. No laughing. Loads going on today. Thank you so much, Sarah. The Met didn't react quick enough in Clapham because they are inactive and lazy and their riot gear didn't fit and they were slightly tired. Probably. Michael, if London is so damn safe, why does Khan ride around in a fleet of bomb-proof vehicles and protected by a large team of armed protection people? Rob in Burnley, it sounds harsh but necessary. Once these kids are identified, their legal guardians need to be brought before a magistrate and fined without exception. If they re-offend, treble the fine. I'd go further, I'd throw them in jail. After listening to Rifkin, I love Trump even more, says Jeff. JK, great show. That's obviously not from my dad or mum because they're dead. Rifkin says Trump uses strong language. Look at where we are with politicians like Rifkin. It's his pussyfooting around that got us here. That's Clay in Folkestone. Paul from Croydon, County Durham. Hi, Jez. It's a myth there are no dads in these communities. There are plenty of dads. The problem is no discipline. Morning, Jez. If Starmer takes us back into the EU, his legacy will be the PM who killed democracy, says Brian Goodwin. Is that already his legacy? I mean, honestly, let's be honest. Finally, morning, Jez. Great show. I love Norman. Oh, yes, Brennan, 2 hours ago. We desperately need him and Peter to run our country's police and restore order. Have a wonderful Easter, says Carol Shoreham by the Sea. Ladies and gentlemen, there are a few people in this damn business that I like. The next one is included... No, stop. I love this man. I call him a friend. Despite his outrageous dress sense, today he's turned up for an interview on the Jeremy Kyle Breakfast Show. With a piece of grass all over his shirt. Mark Wogan, what the hell is that?
Do you mind, Jez? This is quality. I mean, obviously I wouldn't stand next to a naked flame because I'd go up like Jackson in a
Where is your dog commercial. Lying on since you've come to work in that? What?
Just a hard floor at home.
Yes. How are you?
I'm all right, love you.
Your hair's changed colour. What?
Hold on, I need to ask. Because there is so much going on in the world.
Yes.
So much important stuff. But what everybody wants to know is, how's your foot?
Stop it. We're not having... I haven't talked about that. Tell him then. I'm fine. It's Easter. Have a bit of fun.
Jeremy is currently suffering from a nasty case of policeman's heel, is the traditional name of your condition.
Is it?
Or plantar fasciitis.
Which, steady.
And I recommended an insole for you.
I just don't want to wear... Yes, but it's like I'd like to wear special shoes. I haven't reached Skechers moment yet, those bloody slip-on ones.
You don't have to. Look at this footwear that currently has an insole in it, and I don't limp as a result, whereas you are very limp, if you don't mind me saying.
You've completely done me there, haven't you? Why are you here anyway? Are you just filling?
I've no idea.
No. Have you changed your hair colour?
Look, people are accusing me of dyeing my hair. This is my natural colour. I mean, would I leave the grey bits in if I was dyeing it?
But your beard's ginger and your hair on top is dark.
Look, my mother was flame-haired.
Was she?
Yes, and that's representative in my beard. God rest her soul.
We're here. Let's talk about your dad.
Excellent.
And genuinely for a reason. You know what I thought about Terry. Terry was... No, but not in a cheap way. What would you think about the state of the BBC today, Tel? Seriously?
I think he would be concerned. I think it is that thing of... that they can do no right for doing wrong at the moment. I just don't understand what the policy is. I mean, look, there's a new guy coming in.
Mel Britton, no, not Mel Britton, that's a horse trainer, somebody Britton.
And by all accounts, he's super bright and good and has had a proper job and sort of that kind of thing. Not to say people before haven't, but the point is it needs proper governance.
When somebody like your dad, Terry Wogan, and people in the past, the BBC, mate, we talked about this off air, was something that you'd go to. You go to there for the news, you go to there for your dad's show, you go for the Generation Game, you'd go... It's not like that anymore. And presumably, I wish I could tell you that my state broadcaster, in my mind, has to be straight down the middle. When I say that, people say, but talk is a little bit to the right. Yeah, and we set our stall out. We know what it is. And the Guardians to the left, they set their stall out. What I'm saying is, what the BBC has become is almost a caricature of what it's supposed to be.
I think it's slightly terrified of itself.
Why?
I think because it with the way the world has moved and social media and how things change so quickly, they have difficulty keeping up. And
I think they try and be all things to all people and end up letting everybody down. Their vetting process, I mean, honestly.
But impartiality is what you expect from the BBC.
I don't expect them to not be able to call Hamas a terrorist group.
Yeah, there is that. But I think also they should... I mean, I just find it strange that given what has happened historically, that any whiff of that was going on back in 2016, that should have been addressed then.
I believe, just to nail the Scott Mills thing, and it's just a personal opinion, I should make that point. I know how papers do this. They don't release a story on Monday and then drip it unless there's a big news story coming on Sunday. I believe there's more. I think something else has come forward, whether it's tied into the Hugh Edwards thing on Channel 5. I have no idea, but to me there seems to be more. Anyway, but you know I loved your dad. Have you managed to sell his house yet?
Shut up.
Moving on.
You're just waiting for the price to drop, and you're going to come in with the Kyle millions and sweep it up for a bargain, aren't you?
Yes, I made no secret of that. I ring you every day and ask.
And then turn it into some sort of theme park.
Yes, theme park for old television presenters who are no longer around. You can join us. Very quickly, VAT on restaurants. This is a big thing for lots of people.
I'm very passionate about this because, you know, I think there was a bit of an incident outside a McDonald's. There'll be more of those because
Clapham,
if the government don't cut VAT for restaurants, that's about the only place you'll have left to eat. Because restaurants can't survive.
The hospitality sector feels very attacked by this government, right?
Well, successive governments as well. I mean, it's just... We're one of the biggest employers. We're the first point of contact for most people with the workplace, and we're not looked after at government level. It's preposterous.
When this government came to power, they talked about growth, and I made the point at that point that if you want growth, growth is about encouraging small and medium-sized businesses to flourish, and by instigating NI and VAT and everything that on the minimum wage, they've destroyed it, haven't they?
There is, I mean, certainly in the hospitality sector, which, you know, I'm part of with, as you know. You don't go there because obviously you're...
Have you got a restaurant?
I've got a restaurant.
What's it called?
It's called Home Slice Pizza. All right? You don't come because you are fun... Sorry, gluten-free.
What food do you get there?
Pizza.
Oh, right.
Yeah.
Okay,
you see what I did there?
I'm what? Fun-free. I'm gluten-free.
Gluten-free.
Great. So now you've told them I've got Crohn's. It's going, well, I can't walk and I have to poop.
There is a petition online, just to get back to this seriously, quickly for a second. There's a petition online. It's just under 17,000 votes at the moment. Please go and look it up. It's the petition to halve VAT for pubs, cafes and restaurants. Local restaurants.
OK.
They won't survive without it.
OK, good. We did an episode of spooning. We did. Put certain things in my mouth.
Could you explain to people that that is a play on words and not something we actually did?
It's a podcast. Why are you replaying it? Is because nobody else wants to do your podcast?
No, I've been on holiday.
You've been on holiday?
Yeah, and you, in certain circles, are seen as a bit of a name and a quality broadcaster. I mean, not in this circle here, obviously, but we thought we'd put it out again because it is actually very funny. And
why
you're
is it
very
funny?
good on it.
Well, of course I'm good on it.
I know, you were.
Where did you go on holiday?
I didn't go anywhere.
Rehab.
No, I didn't. I went to rehab in '93, for goodness sake.
I love this man.
I didn't have to do it again.
The nicest. Tell them very quickly about that thing they can sign again, petition.
Yes, it's the petition. You go to the government petition website. It's the petition to halve VAT for pubs, cafes and restaurants so that we all survive and you don't end up rioting outside a McDonald's.
He's the top man and a good friend. Thank you, Mark Wogan. The Spooning podcast is on podcast.
It's on the Virgin podcast.
Fantastic. Now,
and just one other thing.
What now?
No, well, I'm here. I might as well say it. I'm also on Virgin Chilled. Saturdays and Sundays, 10 till 2 p.m. If you like relaxing music and drivel between songs.
The media. A Virgin Chilled Saturday and Sunday, Mark Wogan. Thank you very much indeed. Now, if you don't want to sign that and you just frankly want some cash, we are giving you the most amazing chance to win life-changing cash, £20,000, completely tax-free, here on tour. £20,000 into your bank account, no questions asked. We can do it. This is how you can win.
For your chance to win, text TALK to 83338. Texts cost £2.50 plus your standard network rate. Or call 0343 418 7260. Lines close 9th of April 2026, 4 p.m. That's when you'll need to answer your phone if it rings. 18 plus, UK residents only. This is a network promotion. Full T's and C's at talk.tv/win. So for your chance to win, text TALK to 83338 now.
breaking news on Talk Breakfast. Two men, aged 47 and 45, have in the last hour been arrested in connection with the Golders Green arson attack. To me, symbolising absolutely a rise in anti-Semitism. Again, nothing from the government.
Breaking news. It's just a small matter. They have just an announcement saying transgender girls, i.e. boys, they must leave girl guiding by this September the 6th.
We are buying from Norway because they fully exploit their share of the North Sea oil and gas fields, and we don't. Alice in Wonderland nuts.
The UK on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Welcome back, almost 10 o'clock. The First Lady of Talk is here.
Hola.
Hola, Julia, hola.
I don't know why I did that. But
What was that all about?
I don't know. I think we're all just Easter bank holiday excited, aren't we?
Are you chocolate excited?
Yeah, I said
Favourite chocolate, this is important for me.
Favourite chocolate? I'm sorry, I'm going to go fancy schmancy. I love a champagne truffle. I like them fancy.
She's so posh. Just dairy
Easter
milk
eggs,
for me, mate.
No, but Easter eggs,
Yeah.
absolutely, always. Your
Yeah?
basic Cadbury's. We go the mini eggs.
Have you bought the old man one?
I bought for the family. I said this on air my show the other day. I bought for the family, and